Hi everyone, welcome to the Cartoonology channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're doing something a little different. We've got 100 SpongeBob mysteries to fall asleep to, hidden details from the show's creation, small decisions that shaped the characters, stories behind the scenes most fans never hear about. But before we dive in, if you enjoy this kind of content, consider subscribing. It doesn't cost anything and it helps us keep making better videos for everyone here. Alright, let's get into it. First up we got the creation of SpongeBob. SpongeBob SquarePants was created by Stephen Hillenberg. Most people know him as an animator and the mind behind one of the most successful cartoons ever made. But here is something most people don't know. Before Hillenberg ever worked in animation, he was a marine biology teacher. He spent his days teaching students about ocean life, sea creatures, and underwater ecosystems. This was not just a side job or a temporary position. It was his actual profession and his passion. He loved the ocean and wanted others to love it too. Hillenberg worked at the Orange County Marine Institute in California. He taught kids about tide pools, marine animals, and ocean science. During this time, he noticed something important. Kids were naturally fascinated by sea creatures. They loved learning about the strange animals that lived underwater. But traditional teaching methods sometimes made the subject feel dry or difficult. This gave Hillenberg an idea. He wanted to combine his two interests, marine biology and art. He began thinking about how he could teach people about the ocean in a fun and approachable way. He wanted to make ocean life entertaining, not just educational. This background as a marine biology teacher shaped every detail of SpongeBob SquarePants. The show is set underwater because Hillenberg knew that world intimately. The characters are based on real sea creatures because Hillenberg understood their biology. The attention to ocean details comes from years of studying and teaching marine science. But Hillenberg's teaching background influenced more than just the setting of the show. 2. Why SpongeBob is a sea sponge. SpongeBob is a sponge. That much is obvious from his name and appearance. But here's something most people don't know. SpongeBob is actually based on a real sea sponge, not a kitchen sponge. Real sea sponges are simple animals that live in the ocean. They are some of the most basic creatures on Earth. They do not have brains, hearts, or most of the organs that other animals have. Instead, they sit attached to rocks and filter water through their bodies to absorb nutrients and oxygen. Stephen Hillenberg chose a sponge as his main character for specific reasons. As a marine biology teacher, he knew that sponges were fascinating creatures. They look simple, but they have amazing abilities. Real sponges can regenerate themselves if they get damaged. They can filter huge amounts of water. They come in many different colors and shapes. Hillenberg thought a sponge fit the underwater setting naturally. If you are going to create a cartoon about ocean life, you need characters that actually belong in the ocean. A sponge made perfect sense for this world. The choice also had creative benefits. Sponges are elastic and flexible creatures. This meant SpongeBob could be designed to stretch, squish, and change shape for comedy. His absorbent nature could be used for visual gags. His simple biology allowed Hillenberg to give him a simple, optimistic personality without worrying about complex character traits. SpongeBob is based on real marine biology, but the world he lives in also has connections to real geography. Bikini Bottom's real-world inspiration. Bikini Bottom is the underwater city where SpongeBob and his friends live. It looks like a cartoon fantasy world with pineapple houses and underwater campfires. But here is something most people don't know. Bikini Bottom is inspired by real coral reef environments that exist in our oceans. Coral reefs are underwater ecosystems found in warm, shallow waters. They are some of the most diverse habitats on Earth, filled with colorful fish, plants, and sea creatures living together in a small area. Stephen Hillenberg knew coral reefs well from his marine biology background. When he created Bikini Bottom, he drew on his knowledge of these real ecosystems. The variety of characters in the show reflects the diversity of life on actual coral reefs. Different species living close together, interacting and depending on each other, just like in nature. The visual style of Bikini Bottom also references coral reef environments. The bright colors, the sandy ocean floor, the rock formations, and the way light filters down from above all mirror what you would see if you visited a real reef. Hillenberg wanted the setting to feel connected to the actual ocean, even though the stories are pure fantasy. This attention to realistic ocean environments gives Bikini Bottom a sense of authenticity. Even though the show features talking sponges and underwater fires, the basic setting feels grounded in real marine biology. Viewers Viewers might not consciously notice this, but it helps make the world of SpongeBob feel cohesive and believable within its own logic. However, the name Bikini Bottom itself has a much more specific and surprising origin. 4. The meaning behind Bikini Bottom's name. The city is called Bikini Bottom. The name sounds playful and fits the lighthearted tone of the show, but here is something most people don't know. The name Bikini Bottom comes from Bikini Atoll, a real location in the Pacific Ocean. Bikini Atoll is part of the Marshall Islands. Between 1946 and 1958, the United States military used this location to test nuclear weapons. They detonated 23 nuclear bombs at Bikini Atoll during this period. These were some of the most powerful explosions ever created by humans. Steven Hillenberg confirmed that this reference was intentional. He deliberately named his cartoon city after this nuclear test site. The connection is not directly explained in episodes, and most children watching the show would have no idea about this historical background. But the reference is there for those who know the history. This choice adds a darker layer to the seemingly innocent show. Bikini Bottom sits beneath a location known for nuclear testing. Some fans have theorized that this explains why the characters are so unusual. A talking sponge, a starfish who lives under a rock, and a squirrel in an underwater dome might exist because of radiation from the bombs tested above. The creators have never fully confirmed this mutation theory, but they have acknowledged discussing the nuclear connection during early development. They knew exactly what they were referencing when they chose the name Bikini Bottom. It fits with the show's pattern of including subtle references that adults might catch, but children would miss. And the name is not the only detail about the show that has hidden meaning or unclear answers. 5. SpongeBob's exact age. SpongeBob works at the Krusty Krab, has his own house, and lives independently. This suggests he is an adult. But here's something most people don't know. SpongeBob's exact age is loosely defined and has actually changed over the course of the show. The creators have deliberately kept his age vague. This ambiguity serves the show's storytelling needs, allowing SpongeBob to be treated as an adult in some episodes and more childlike in others. Early promotional material for the show listed SpongeBob as being born in 1986. This would make him a young adult when the show premiered in 1999. But later episodes avoid stating his age clearly. His driver's license has been shown on screen multiple times, and the birth year changes between appearances. Sometimes it says 1986, other times it shows different years. This inconsistency is intentional. Steven Hillenberg and the writers did not want to lock SpongeBob into a specific age. They wanted flexibility to tell different kinds of stories. If SpongeBob has a definite age, it creates limitations. The character ages in real time, or the timeline becomes confusing. By keeping the age vague, the show can maintain a timeless quality. SpongeBob has been enthusiastically working at the Krusty Krab for over 25 years of episodes without aging or changing. This would be impossible if his age was clearly defined. The ambiguity lets the show exist in a kind of eternal present where nothing has to change. This same approach applies to other aspects of SpongeBob's life that seem like they should progress but never do. 6. SpongeBob's driving school timeline. SpongeBob attends boating school throughout the entire series. He desperately wants to get his boating license. He tries again and again, failing every time. But here is something most people don't know. There is no confirmed graduation episode. SpongeBob never succeeds in getting his license permanently. This ongoing failure is treated as a consistent part of his character across hundreds of episodes. In the very first episode, SpongeBob fails his boating test. 25 years and over 300 episodes later, he still has not passed. Mrs. Puff, his boating school teacher, has suffered through countless attempts to teach him. Some episodes show her completely traumatized by the experience. Occasionally, SpongeBob comes close to success. In a few episodes, he temporarily receives his license or demonstrates that he can drive perfectly under certain conditions, but these moments never last. By the next episode that deals with driving, he is back to being completely incompetent behind the wheel. This creates a kind of loop that can never be resolved. If SpongeBob actually graduated from boating school and got his license, it would fundamentally change his character and the show's dynamics. Mrs. Puff would have no reason to appear. Many storylines would become impossible. The show needs SpongeBob to keep failing. The writers chose to make this failure permanent. It is not a goal SpongeBob will eventually achieve. It is a defining characteristic that will continue for as long as the show runs. Just as SpongeBob's boating school situation remains unchanged, other elements of the show also went through changes before settling into their final forms. 7. The Krusty Krab's original name. The Krusty Krab is the fast food restaurant where SpongeBob works. The name is spelled with the letter K, Krusty Krab. But here is something most people don't know. Early concept art shows the Krusty Krab had different name ideas before the series aired. The creators experimented with various options during development. They tested different spellings and different words to find what sounded best. The final name, Krusty Krab, was chosen for simplicity and memorability. The hard K sound is sharper and funnier than a soft C would be. Saying Krusty Krab out loud has a certain rhythm and punch that makes it stick in your mind. The name is easy for children to remember and fun to say. Steven Hillenberg made many small decisions like this during development. He would try different versions of names, designs, and concepts, always asking which option was funnier or more memorable. The Krusty Krab name emerged from this process of testing and refinement. The restaurant's name is now iconic. Fans around the world recognize it instantly. The Krusty Krab has become one of the most famous fictional restaurants in any cartoon. People have tried to open real restaurants with this name, showing how deeply the concept has entered popular culture. But the name is not the only interesting detail about the Krusty Krab's design. 8. Why the Krusty Krab is a trap. The Krusty Krab building has a distinctive shape. It is an unusual structure that stands out in Bikini Bottom. But here is something most people don't know. The Krusty Krab is deliberately shaped like a lobster trap. This was an intentional joke by the creators. If you look at the building's design, you can see the resemblance. The structure, with its particular architecture and shape, mirrors the cages that fishermen use to catch lobsters and crabs. This design choice reflects Mr. Krabs' character perfectly. Mr. Krabs is obsessed with money. He runs his restaurant to trap customers and get their cash. The building itself being a literal trap is a visual joke about his business philosophy. Customers come in and Mr. Krabs does not want to let them leave without spending money. The lobster trap design also connects to Mr. Krabs being a crab himself. The irony of a crab running a business in a building shaped like a device meant to catch crabs adds another layer to the joke. It is the kind of visual humor that works on multiple levels. Most viewers probably never consciously notice that the building is trap-shaped, but the design contributes to the show's visual identity. The Krusty Krab is one of the most recognizable buildings in animation, partly because of this unique and meaningful shape. Inside this trap-shaped building is the Krusty Krab's most important secret, Devini. The Krabby Patty secret formula rules. The secret formula for Krabby Patties is the central mystery of the show. Plankton spends the entire series trying to steal it. The formula is kept locked in a safe. But here is something most people don't know. The show confirms the formula exists, but has never revealed its ingredients. This is not an oversight or something the creators forgot to explain. The writers have actually stated publicly that the formula will never be shown to viewers. This was a deliberate creative decision made early in the show's development. Keeping the formula secret serves the show's storytelling needs. The mystery is more valuable than any possible answer. No matter what ingredients the formula contains, the actual reveal would be disappointing. It cannot live up to decades of buildup and speculation. The secret formula provides endless story possibilities. Plankton can keep trying to steal it. New schemes and plots can revolve around it. The formula is a constant source of conflict that drives many episodes. As long as it remains secret, these stories can continue. Several episodes have teased revealing the formula, only to pull back at the last moment. The bottle might be opened, but then something blocks our view. A character might start to read the ingredients, but then gets interrupted. The show plays with audience expectations while never actually breaking its own rule. This rule about never showing the formula exists for very specific reasons related to the show's structure. 10. Why the formula is never shown. The Krabby Patty's secret formula will never be revealed. This is not speculation or theory, but here is something most people don't know. The formula is hidden specifically to avoid ending the central conflict of the show. If the formula were ever revealed, Plankton's entire role would disappear. His character exists to try to steal the formula. Without that goal driving his actions, there would be no reason for Plankton to keep appearing in episodes. Plankton is one of the main characters in SpongeBob SquarePants. He appears in a huge number of episodes. His schemes against Mr. Krabs and attempts to steal the formula provide countless storylines. If he succeeded, or if the formula was revealed in any other way, this entire structure would collapse. The writers recognized this early on. They built the show around certain conflicts that need to continue indefinitely. SpongeBob keeps failing at boating school. Squidward keeps being annoyed by SpongeBob. And Plankton keeps trying and failing to get the secret formula. These are permanent aspects of the show's structure. This choice keeps the story stable. The same basic conflicts exist in episode 1 and episode 300. Characters do not fundamentally change or achieve their goals. The show returns to a comfortable status quo at the end of every episode. This consistency is part of what makes SpongeBob work as a long-running series. But while Plankton remains consistently small throughout the show, his actual size went through some interesting changes during early production. 11. Plankton's size consistency. Plankton is one of the smallest characters in SpongeBob SquarePants. He is tiny compared to everyone else in Bikini Bottom. His small size is part of what makes him funny and also frustrating as a villain. But here's something most people don't know. Plankton's size is usually consistent throughout the show, but it matches exaggerated plankton proportions rather than realistic ones. Real plankton in the ocean are microscopic organisms. They are so small that you cannot see them without a microscope. If SpongeBob followed real biology, Plankton would be invisible to the other characters. Instead, the show makes Plankton small enough to be noticeably tiny, but large enough to interact with other characters. He can stand next to SpongeBob and have a conversation. He can walk into the Krusty Krab and attempt to steal the secret formula. He can operate machinery and create inventions. None of this would be possible if he was truly microscopic. Sometimes Plankton's size does change slightly between scenes or episodes. These changes are treated as cartoon logic rather than actual shifts in his character. The animators adjust his size based on what works best for each scene. If he needs to be extra small for a visual gag, he becomes smaller. If he needs to operate a larger piece of equipment, he might appear slightly bigger. This flexible approach to size keeps the comedy working. Plankton can be small enough to sneak into places unnoticed, but large enough to be a real character with personality and presence. The show balances realism with storytelling needs. Speaking of Plankton, one of his most important relationships is with his computer wife. 12. Plankton's computer wife, Karen. Karen is Plankton's wife. She appears as a computer screen with a face. She talks to Plankton, helps with his schemes, and often questions his plans. But here is something most people don't know. Karen was created specifically to give Plankton someone to talk to. Plankton is a villain who works alone. Without Karen, he would have no one to explain his plans to or argue with. The writers needed a character who could be with Plankton at all times and interact with him naturally. Making Karen a computer solved several problems at once. Computers can be anywhere Plankton goes. A computer wife does not need to leave the Chum Bucket or have her own separate storylines. She can simply be there whenever the story needs her. This made her a practical choice for the show's structure. Karen often acts as Plankton's voice of reason. When he comes up with a ridiculous scheme to steal the Krabby Patty formula, Karen points out the flaws in his plan. She is smarter than Plankton in many ways, and more realistic about their chances of success. This creates comedy through their arguments and disagreements. Over time, Karen's role grew more important in the show. Early episodes used her sparingly. She was just a background character who occasionally spoke. But as the series continued, writers gave her more personality and more scenes. She became a fully developed character with her own opinions and feelings. The relationship between Plankton and Karen adds depth to his character and makes him more than just a one-dimensional villain. But Karen herself has changed visually over the years as the show evolved. Karen's changing design. Karen started as a computer screen with a simple face. Her design was basic in early episodes. She looked like a monitor with eyes and a mouth. But here is something most people don't know. Karen's design becomes smoother and more refined in later seasons. Early versions of Karen were more basic and blocky. The animation technology available when SpongeBob first started was more limited. Computers and digital effects were not as advanced in 1999 as they are today. As animation technology improved, Karen's design improved with it. Her screen became sleeker. The lines became smoother. The way her face moved became more fluid and expressive. These changes happened gradually over many seasons as the production quality of the entire show increased. The improvements in Karen's design reflect broader changes in how SpongeBob is animated. The show switched from traditional cell animation to digital animation after the first season. This allowed for more precise control over how characters looked and moved. Karen benefited from these technological advances more than most characters because she is supposed to be a piece of technology herself. Her voice and personality remained consistent, even as her visual design changed. The same voice actress, Jill Talley, has played Karen since the beginning. This continuity helped Karen feel like the same character, despite her changing appearance. The visual evolution of Karen shows how long-running animated shows adapt to new technology while trying to maintain their core identity. And Karen is not the only character whose design reveals interesting details about the show's creation. Squidward's species confusion. Squidward is one of the main characters in SpongeBob SquarePants. His name clearly says he is a squid. That seems straightforward enough. But here is something most people don't know. Squidward is officially an octopus, not a squid. This has been confirmed by the show's creators multiple times. Despite his name being Squidward, he is actually based on an octopus. This confuses many viewers who assume his name reflects his species. The reason for this mismatch is simple. Steven Hillenberg chose the name Squidward because it sounded better than Octaward or any other octopus-based name. The name Squidward has a certain rhythm and character to it. It fits the personality of a grumpy, pretentious character. Octopus names did not have the same appeal. If you look at Squidward's design, you can see he is an octopus. He has a large, bulbous head and 8 limbs total. Real squids have 10 limbs and look quite different from octopuses. Squidward's appearance matches an octopus much more closely than a squid. The creators made a deliberate choice to prioritize what sounded good over what was scientifically accurate. This is a pattern throughout SpongeBob. The show uses real marine biology as inspiration, but changes details when it makes the cartoon better. Squidward being an octopus with a squid name is just one example of this approach. The name stuck and became part of the character's identity, even though it technically describes the wrong species. Just like his name, Squidward's house also has specific meaning behind its unusual design. 15. Squidward's house architecture. Squidward lives in a house shaped like an Easter Island head. These are the famous stone statues found on Easter Island in the Pacific Ocean. The heads are large, elongated, and instantly recognizable. But here is something most people don't know. Squidward's home resembling an Easter Island stone head was an intentional visual reference by the creators. Easter Island heads, also called moai, are ancient sculptures created by the Rapa Nui people. They represent ancestral figures and are considered important cultural artifacts. These statues have become iconic symbols in popular culture. The choice to make Squidward's house look like an Easter Island head reinforces his artistic personality. Squidward sees himself as a sophisticated artist. He plays the clarinet, paints, and appreciates culture. Living in a house shaped like a famous work of art fits with how he views himself. The design also makes Squidward's house visually distinct from his neighbors. SpongeBob lives in a pineapple. Patrick lives under a rock. Squidward lives in an ancient stone head. Each house reflects something about the character who lives there. The Easter Island head suggests that Squidward thinks he is more cultured and refined than everyone around him. The Moai design has remained consistent throughout the entire series. Squidward's house has appeared in hundreds of episodes and always maintains this distinctive Easter Island head shape. It has become one of the most recognizable locations in the show. Squidward's house reflects his personality, and so does another important detail about his character. 16. Why Squidward plays the clarinet. Squidward plays the clarinet throughout the series. He practices constantly and considers himself a talented musician. He performs at concerts and believes he has real skill. But here is something most people don't know. The clarinet was chosen specifically because it is often stereotyped as unpleasant when played poorly. Clarinets can produce beautiful music in skilled hands, but beginners often create squeaky, irritating sounds. The instrument has a reputation for being difficult to play well. This choice creates quiet irony in Squidward's character. Squidward believes he is talented and that others should appreciate his music, but everyone else in Bikini Bottom finds his clarinet playing terrible. They cover their ears and complain when he practices. The audience can hear that Squidward is not good, but he remains convinced of his own skill. The contrast between Squidward's self-perception and reality is central to his character. He thinks he is a great artist and musician. Everyone else knows the truth. The clarinet reinforces this gap between how Squidward sees himself and how others see him. Stephen Hillenberg and the writers could have chosen any instrument for Squidward. They picked the clarinet because it fit the character perfectly. An instrument known for sounding bad in unskilled hands, played by a character who thinks he has great skill, creates natural comedy. The clarinet has become as much a part of Squidward's identity as his grumpy personality and artistic pretensions. And while Squidward struggles with self-awareness, another character has a very different kind of consistency. 17. Patrick's low intelligence canon. Patrick Star is SpongeBob's best friend. He is known for being unintelligent and saying confused things. He rarely understands what is happening around him. But here is something most people don't know. Patrick is written as unintelligent in most episodes, and his behavior stays consistent across all seasons. This is not something that developed over time or changed as the show evolved. From the very first episodes, Patrick was designed to be the least intelligent character in Bikini Bottom. Patrick's low intelligence is a core part of his character. He lives under a rock with no furniture. He has trouble understanding basic concepts. He forgets things immediately after learning them. He makes decisions that do not make logical sense. All of these traits have been present since the show began. Rare exceptions exist, where Patrick shows brief moments of intelligence or insight. In a few episodes, he demonstrates knowledge or understanding that surprises other characters. But these moments are treated as jokes rather than character growth. The show makes it clear that these are exceptions, not signs that Patrick is becoming smarter. The writers deliberately keep Patrick at the same level of intelligence throughout hundreds of episodes. He does not learn from his mistakes. He does not become wiser with experience. He remains exactly as unintelligent as he was in the first season. This consistency is intentional. By keeping Patrick's intelligence level stable, the show maintains a reliable character type that viewers can always count on for specific kinds of comedy. Patrick's simple personality extends even to where and how he lives. 18. Patrick's home design. Patrick Star lives under a rock. His home is literally a large rock with empty space underneath it. It is one of the simplest living situations in all of Bikini Bottom. But here is something most people don't know. Patrick living under a rock connects to real starfish behavior in nature. Real starfish often hide under rocks and other objects on the ocean floor. They seek shelter under stones, shells, and debris. This is natural behavior for starfish in the wild. Stephen Hillenberg knew this from his marine biology background. When creating a home for Patrick, he drew on actual starfish habits. Making Patrick live under a rock was both scientifically inspired and funny. The phrase living under a rock is an expression people use to describe someone who is unaware of the world around them. Patrick literally lives under a rock and is completely unaware of most things. Inside Patrick's rock, there is almost nothing. Some episodes show the interior as completely empty. Other episodes show minimal furniture, like a chair or a lamp. The emptiness reflects Patrick's simple personality and lack of needs. He does not require much to be happy. The rock itself has appeared consistently throughout the series. It sits between SpongeBob's pineapple and Squidward's Easter Island head house. The three homes are the most frequently shown locations in the series, after the Krusty Krab. Patrick's rock connects him to real marine life, while also serving as a visual joke about his character. Not all characters in Bikini Bottom follow marine biology as closely as Patrick's rock does, though. Deviniolictus, Sandy's underwater air dome. Sandy Cheeks is a squirrel who lives underwater. This creates an obvious problem. Squirrels are mammals that need air to breathe. They cannot survive in water. But here's something most people don't know. Sandy's tree dome contains air and land plants, and it follows simple pressure and air rules. The dome is actually one of the show's more realistic science concepts. Sandy built an enclosed habitat that keeps water out and air in, similar to how real underwater research stations work. The tree dome operates on basic physics principles. Air pressure inside the dome keeps the water from entering. The structure is sealed to maintain this pressure difference. Sandy can live, breathe, and keep plants alive inside because the environment is controlled. When other characters visit Sandy, they need water-filled helmets to survive. SpongeBob and Patrick cannot breathe air, so they wear helmets full of water when they enter the tree dome. This creates a reversal of normal diving equipment. Instead of humans wearing air tanks underwater creatures wear water tanks in air. The tree dome demonstrates that someone thought about the science behind this detail. They created a logical explanation for how a land mammal could live at the bottom of the ocean. The physics are simplified for a cartoon, but the basic concept is sound. Sandy's tree dome shows that even in a fantasy cartoon, some elements are grounded in real science. And Sandy's presence underwater connects to another deliberate choice about her character. 20. Sandy's Texas identity. Sandy Cheeks is from Texas. She has a strong Texas accent and frequently references her home state. She wears a cowboy hat and demonstrates Texas pride. But here's something most people don't know. Sandy is from Texas, specifically to contrast with the underwater world of Bikini Bottom. Stephen Hillenberg wanted a character who felt completely out of place in the ocean environment. Making Sandy a Texan squirrel scientist created maximum contrast with everything else in the show. Texas is landlocked and far from any ocean. It represents wide open spaces, dry land, and cowboy culture. These qualities are the opposite of an underwater setting. By making Sandy from Texas, the show emphasizes how different she is from everyone around her. Sandy's Texas identity also explains her scientific background. She is an inventor and scientist who built her own underwater habitat. Her intelligence and technical skills are established through her Texas engineer persona. She combines Southern culture with scientific expertise. Her accent and mannerisms make her immediately recognizable. When Sandy talks about Texas or calls someone y'all, viewers know exactly who is speaking. The Texas identity gives her a distinctive voice and personality that stands out in Bikini Bottom. The choice to make Sandy specifically Texan rather than just a generic American was deliberate and adds layers to her character. But while Sandy's home state never changes, the geography of Bikini Bottom itself maintains surprising consistency. 21. Bikini Bottom's map consistency. Bikini Bottom is the city where all the main characters live. SpongeBob's pineapple, the Krusty Krab, and other important locations are spread throughout this underwater town. But here is something most people don't know. Bikini Bottom's layout stays mostly the same throughout the entire series. Major locations rarely change position relative to each other. The Krusty Krab is always in the same general area. SpongeBob's house, Patrick's Rock, and Squidward's Easter Island head remain neighbors in the same configuration. The Jellyfish fields are always in the same direction from the main part of town. This consistency helps viewers feel familiar with the setting. When you watch SpongeBob, you develop a mental map of where everything is located. You know that to get from SpongeBob's house to the Krusty Krab, he follows a certain path. You know where Mrs. Puff's boating school sits in relation to other buildings. Maintaining this geographic consistency requires careful planning by the show's creators. Storyboard artists and animators need to remember where everything is located. If locations moved around randomly between episodes, the world would feel chaotic and confusing. Viewers would lose their sense of place. Some minor locations do appear and disappear as needed for specific episodes. Background buildings might change, new shops or attractions might show up temporarily, but the core geography of Bikini Bottom remains stable. The important places that define the world stay exactly where they have always been. This stable geography makes Bikini Bottom feel like a real place, rather than just a cartoon backdrop. The consistency helps viewers connect with the setting and understand the world the characters inhabit. But even within this consistent geography, some locations follow their own unusual logic. 22. Goo Lagoon's geography. Goo Lagoon is the beach in Bikini Bottom. Characters go there to swim, surf, and sunbathe. It looks like a normal beach with sand, water, and lifeguards. But here is something most people don't know. Goo Lagoon acts like a beach despite being underwater. The show treats it as a contained water space within the larger ocean. This creates a strange situation where underwater creatures go to a beach to play in the water, even though they already live in water. The logic of Goo Lagoon is intentionally contradictory. It exists because SpongeBob wanted to include beach episodes and beach culture, even though the entire show takes place at the bottom of the ocean. Instead of trying to explain this contradiction, the show simply presents Goo Lagoon as a normal beach and expects viewers to accept it. This approach is consistent with how SpongeBob handles many impossible situations. Fire burns underwater. Characters drown while already living underwater. Rain falls beneath the ocean. The show does not try to make these things scientifically accurate. It treats them as normal within the cartoon's logic. Goo Lagoon appears regularly throughout the series. It is a popular location for episodes about competition, summer activities, and social situations. The beach setting allows for storylines that would not work anywhere else in Bikini Bottom. The name Goo Lagoon itself suggests that the water there is different from regular ocean water. The word goo implies a thicker, stranger substance. This slight acknowledgement of the strangeness is the only explanation the show offers. Just as Goo Lagoon follows its own logic, another location in Bikini Bottom operates with simplified rules. 23. Jellyfish Fields behavior. Jellyfish Fields is where SpongeBob goes to catch jellyfish. It is a wide open area filled with jellyfish floating through the water. SpongeBob considers jellyfishing his favorite hobby. But here is something most people don't know. Jellyfish and SpongeBob behave like bees or butterflies rather than real jellyfish. This design choice makes them easier for children to understand. Real jellyfish move by pulsing their bodies and drifting with ocean currents. They are graceful, but not very active or fast. In SpongeBob, jellyfish fly around quickly and actively. They buzz like bees. They can be chased and caught with nets. They swarm together and move in coordinated groups. All of these behaviors come from insects, rather than actual jellyfish biology. Steven Hillenberg simplified jellyfish behavior to make them work better as cartoon characters. If the jellyfish moved like real jellyfish, they would be slow and difficult to catch. The action of jellyfishing would not be exciting or fun to watch. By making them behave like bees, the show creates active chase sequences. The jellyfish also make buzzing sounds, similar to flying insects. Real jellyfish are silent creatures. They do not produce sounds that humans can hear, but the buzzing noise helps viewers understand when jellyfish are nearby and adds to the energy of jellyfishing scenes. Jellyfish Fields appears frequently throughout the series as a peaceful natural area outside the main town. It serves as SpongeBob's escape from work and his place to enjoy nature. The simplified behavior of jellyfish extends to another trait they possess in the show. 24. Jellyfish electricity. In SpongeBob, jellyfish can sting other characters. When they sting someone, it looks and feels like an electric shock. The victim gets zapped and sometimes shows their skeleton through their body. But here is something most people don't know. Jellyfish stings are shown as electric shocks, but real jellyfish do use stinging cells. The show exaggerates this trait for clarity and comedy. Real jellyfish have specialized cells called nematocysts that inject venom when touched. This causes a burning, stinging sensation. In the show, jellyfish stings work more like electricity. Characters get shocked with visible lightning bolts. The effect looks similar to touching an electrical wire. This makes the danger of jellyfish immediately clear to young viewers who might not understand venom or stinging cells. The electric shock version of jellyfish stings also creates better visual comedy. When a character gets stung, their body lights up. Their skeleton becomes visible. They shake and vibrate. These are classic cartoon effects that work well for humor. Real jellyfish venom affects people in various ways depending on the species. Some jellyfish stings are barely noticeable. Others can be extremely painful or even dangerous. Box jellyfish, for example, have venom that can be deadly to humans. But SpongeBob simplifies all of this into one consistent electric shock effect. The show takes a real biological trait and transforms it into something that works better for animation. This pattern of starting with real marine biology and then adapting it for entertainment appears throughout SpongeBob. And just like the jellyfish are simplified versions of real creatures, SpongeBob's own body follows certain cartoon rules. 25. SpongeBob's square shape. SpongeBob is square. His body is a perfect rectangular shape with crisp edges and corners. This shape is his most recognizable feature. But here is something most people don't know. SpongeBob's body remains square in most situations throughout the series. This makes animation simpler and keeps the character design consistent. Animators draw SpongeBob the same way in nearly every scene. His square shape is reliable and predictable. Occasionally, SpongeBob's body changes shape for comedy. He might stretch, squish, inflate, or transform temporarily. These shape changes happen when the joke requires them, but they are always temporary. By the end of the scene, SpongeBob returns to his standard square shape. Maintaining a consistent character shape is important in animation. Viewers need to recognize characters instantly. If SpongeBob looked different in every scene, it would be confusing and disorienting. The square shape is his visual identity. The square shape also makes SpongeBob easier to draw. Straight lines and right angles are simpler than curves and organic shapes. This practical consideration matters when animators need to draw the same character thousands of times across hundreds of episodes. Steven Hillenberg chose the kitchen sponge design specifically because the square shape looked funnier than a natural sea sponge. That square design has remained constant for over 25 years. It is now one of the most recognizable shapes in all of animation. SpongeBob's square body is not just a visual choice, though. It also connects to a real ability that sponges possess. 26. SpongeBob's regeneration ability. SpongeBob can repair himself when damaged. He gets torn apart, squished flat, or broken into pieces in various episodes. Then he simply puts himself back together. But here is something most people don't know. Real sponges can regenerate in nature, and SpongeBob's ability is inspired by this biological fact. If a real sponge gets damaged or cut into pieces, it can regrow the missing parts. Some sponges can even regenerate into multiple, complete sponges from separate pieces. This is an actual superpower that real sponges possess. Stephen Hillenberg knew about sponge regeneration from his marine biology background. He incorporated this real trait into SpongeBob's character. When SpongeBob repairs himself instantly after being damaged, it is not just cartoon logic. It is based on something sponges actually do. The show exaggerates the speed and ease of regeneration for comedy. Real sponges take time to regrow damaged tissue. The process happens slowly over days or weeks. In SpongeBob, regeneration is instant. He can reassemble himself in seconds, or even pull himself back together like nothing happened. This regeneration ability allows the show to do extreme physical comedy without permanent consequences. SpongeBob can be flattened, exploded, or shredded, and he always returns to normal. The regeneration keeps the violence cartoonish and harmless. Using real sponge biology as the basis for this cartoon ability shows how Hillenberg blended scientific fact with animated fantasy throughout the show. Just as SpongeBob's physical traits stay consistent, the passage of time in Bikini Bottom follows its own special rules. 27. Time passing in Bikini Bottom. Days and nights happen in Bikini Bottom. Characters go to work, come home, and sleep. Seasons change and holidays occur. But here is something most people don't know. Time passes inconsistently in the series, and the timeline is deliberately kept unclear. Days, years, and seasons are not tracked in any meaningful way. The show exists in a kind of floating present, where specific dates and ages do not matter. Some episodes take place over a single day. Others cover weeks or longer periods. But the show never keeps track of how much time has actually passed since the first episode. SpongeBob has worked at the Krusty Krab for over 25 years of real time. But the show never acknowledges this accumulation of time. This vague timeline allows the show to tell any story without worrying about continuity. Characters do not age. Relationships do not progress. Nothing changes permanently. Each episode can reset to a baseline state without explaining how much time has passed since the last episode. The lack of a clear timeline also prevents the show from becoming dated. If episodes referenced specific years or tracked time carefully, the show would feel tied to a particular era. By keeping time vague, SpongeBob can feel timeless and relevant, regardless of when someone watches it. This approach to time has become standard for many long-running cartoons. Shows that run for decades need flexibility with time to keep telling stories without their worlds aging and changing. The vague approach to time extends to another detail the show carefully avoids. 28. The use of calendar dates. SpongeBob episodes feature many different events and activities. Characters plan things, remember things, and talk about when things happened. But here is something most people don't know. Dates are rarely mentioned directly in SpongeBob episodes. The show avoids saying specific calendar dates or years. This keeps the episodes feeling timeless. When an episode does not reference a specific date, it can be watched and enjoyed at any time without feeling outdated. Avoiding specific dates also prevents continuity problems. If one episode says it takes place on June 15th, and another episode also takes place on June 15th, but shows different events, viewers might notice the contradiction. By not using specific dates, the show avoids these potential conflicts. Some episodes do reference holidays like Christmas or Valentine's Day. These holiday episodes do not specify which year the holiday is happening. They just present the holiday itself. This allows the show to have multiple Christmas episodes without explaining why SpongeBob is celebrating Christmas for the 5th or 10th time. The vague approach to dates matches the vague approach to time. Both choices serve the same purpose, keeping the show flexible and timeless. The creators can tell any story they want without being locked into a specific timeline or calendar. This careful avoidance of concrete dates and times helps SpongeBob maintain its eternal present, where nothing ever has to change or grow old. But while most aspects of the show reset each episode, some things do carry forward across multiple stories. 29. Mrs. Puff's Criminal Records. Mrs. Puff is SpongeBob's boating school teacher. She seems like a respectable educator running a legitimate school. But here is something most people don't know. Mrs. Puff is arrested multiple times throughout the series, and these events are referenced in later episodes. This creates a surprising amount of continuity for a character who initially seems simple and straightforward. Mrs. Puff's arrests usually happen because of situations involving SpongeBob. When SpongeBob drives, he causes destruction and chaos. Mrs. Puff, as his teacher, sometimes gets blamed for his actions. The police arrest her, and she ends up in jail or on trial. The show treats Mrs. Puff's criminal record as an ongoing joke. She accumulates more arrests and legal problems as the series continues. Some episodes show her trying to hide her past, or dealing with the consequences of her previous arrests. This is unusual for SpongeBob, which typically does not carry storylines from one episode to another. These recurring references to Mrs. Puff's criminal history show that the writers do track some elements across episodes. While most of SpongeBob operates on a reset button, where nothing permanent happens, certain character details do persist. Mrs. Puff's troubled relationship with law enforcement is one of these persistent elements. The comedy comes from the contrast between Mrs. Puff's role as a responsible teacher and her growing criminal record. She is trying to do her job, but SpongeBob keeps creating situations that land her in legal trouble. Mrs. Puff's legal problems are not the only exaggerated trait she possesses. 30. Mrs. Puff's immortality gag. Mrs. Puff is a pufferfish. Pufferfish are known for one specific defense mechanism. They inflate their bodies when threatened. This makes them look bigger and harder to eat. But here is something most people don't know. Mrs. Puff survives extreme injuries throughout the series by inflating. The show exaggerates the defensive ability of pufferfish to ridiculous levels. Real pufferfish inflate to avoid predators. But in SpongeBob, Mrs. Puff uses this ability to survive situations that would destroy anyone else. Mrs. Puff gets crushed, exploded, and subjected to terrible accidents because of SpongeBob's driving. Instead of being hurt, she inflates to protect herself. The inflation becomes a visual representation of her stress and fear. The more traumatic the situation, the bigger she inflates. This exaggerated survival ability is based on real pufferfish biology. Pufferfish really do inflate as a defense mechanism. They gulp water or air to expand their bodies to several times their normal size. Some species also have spines that stick out when inflated, making them even more difficult for predators to swallow. SpongeBob takes this real trait and pushes it to cartoon extremes. Mrs. Puff's inflation becomes both a defense mechanism and a comedy device. The audience knows that no matter what happens to her during SpongeBob's driving lessons, she will survive by puffing up. The combination of her criminal record and her impossible survival ability makes Mrs. Puff one of the most developed supporting characters in the series. But Mrs. Puff is not the only aspect of Bikini Bottom society that operates on flexible rules. 31. Bikini Bottom law enforcement. Bikini Bottom has police officers who appear in various episodes. They arrest criminals, investigate crimes, and try to maintain order in the underwater city. But here is something most people don't know. Police behavior varies between episodes, and laws are loosely enforced. The show does not maintain strict consistency about what is legal or illegal in Bikini Bottom. Rules seem to change based on what the story needs. This inconsistency is accepted within the show's canon, rather than treated as an error. In some episodes, the police are competent and effective. They solve crimes and catch criminals. In other episodes, they are incompetent or corrupt. Sometimes they arrest people for minor issues. Other times, they ignore serious problems. The level of law enforcement changes to fit the comedy. The same police officers appear across multiple episodes, but their personalities and effectiveness shift. This flexibility allows the writers to use law enforcement in different ways. Sometimes the police are antagonists who create problems for the main characters. Sometimes they are helpers who solve problems. Sometimes they are background characters who barely matter. Bikini Bottom also has laws that only appear when needed for specific episodes. Traffic laws exist when the story involves driving. Health codes exist when the story involves the Krusty Krab. Property laws exist when the story involves houses or land. But these laws are not consistently referenced or enforced across all episodes. This loose approach to law and order fits with the show's overall approach to continuity. SpongeBob maintains some consistent elements, but changes others as needed to tell different kinds of stories. The inconsistency of regular law enforcement contrasts with another character who follows more specific supernatural rules. 32. The Flying Dutchman's Rules. The Flying Dutchman is a ghost pirate who appears in multiple SpongeBob episodes. He haunts Bikini Bottom and tries to scare people. He lives in a ghostly ship and has supernatural powers. But here is something most people don't know. The Flying Dutchman follows specific ghost rules that stay mostly consistent across his appearances. Unlike the flexible law enforcement in Bikini Bottom, the Flying Dutchman operates by established supernatural logic. He can scare people, but has clear limits on what he can and cannot do. The Flying Dutchman must scare people to maintain his power and reputation as a ghost. If he fails to scare someone, he loses credibility. This creates stakes for his character. He needs to be frightening to fulfill his role as a ghost, but the main characters often are not afraid of him. He can turn people into ghosts temporarily. He can move through walls and fly. He can create illusions and transform his appearance. These abilities are consistent when he appears. The show establishes what the Flying Dutchman can do and mostly sticks to those rules. The Flying Dutchman also has weaknesses that remain consistent. He can be defeated or tricked by clever characters. He has a soul-stealing sock that holds the souls of people he has claimed. He must follow certain ghost traditions and cannot break his own supernatural code. By giving the Flying Dutchman consistent rules, the show creates a character who feels more developed than a simple one-time villain. His established abilities and limitations make him recognizable across multiple episodes. These consistent supernatural rules extend to his visual design as well. 33. The Flying Dutchman's Design Origins. The Flying Dutchman has a distinctive appearance in SpongeBob. He glows green, has a large beard, wears a pirate coat, and speaks in a deep, ghostly voice. But here's something most people don't know. The Flying Dutchman is based on traditional pirate ghost imagery from folklore and popular culture. Green coloration is common in ghost folklore and has been used for centuries to represent supernatural beings. The color green suggests decay, the unnatural, and the otherworldly. Ghost stories and legends about pirate ghosts have existed for hundreds of years. The Flying Dutchman legend itself comes from maritime folklore about a ghost ship doomed to sail the oceans forever. The captain of this ghost ship cannot return to port and is cursed to wander eternally. SpongeBob takes this traditional legend and adapts it for the underwater setting. Instead of a ghost ship sailing on the ocean surface, the Flying Dutchman haunts the ocean floor. His ship floats through the water rather than on top of it. The legend is transformed to fit Bikini Bottom. The character's design incorporates classic pirate elements, like the tricorn hat, long coat, and facial hair. These visual markers immediately identify him as a pirate to viewers. The transparent green glow identifies him as a ghost. The combination of pirate and ghost imagery creates a character type that audiences recognize instantly. By using established visual language from folklore and popular culture, the show makes the Flying Dutchman immediately understandable. Viewers know what he is and what he does just by looking at him. The Flying Dutchman maintains consistency across appearances, unlike another royal character whose portrayal changes significantly. 34. King Neptune's changing personality. King Neptune appears in both the SpongeBob television series and the first SpongeBob movie. He is the king of the ocean and has magical powers. But here is something most people don't know. King Neptune differs between versions, and the show officially acknowledges this as a variation. The King Neptune in the television series and the King Neptune in the movie are portrayed as different characters with different personalities and appearances. In the television series, King Neptune is voiced by John O'Hurley. He appears as a powerful but somewhat vain godlike figure. He has a muscular build and takes himself very seriously. This version appears in several episodes throughout the series. In the first SpongeBob movie, King Neptune is voiced by Jeffrey Tambor. This version is much older, has a large white beard, is balding, and acts more insecure about his appearance. His personality is different from the series version. He worries about being bald and acts less godlike and more like a regular king. The creators have acknowledged that these are meant to be variations of the same character, rather than a continuity error. They did not try to make the movie version match the series version. Instead, they created a new interpretation for the film. This flexibility reflects the show's overall approach to consistency. Some elements stay rigidly the same, while others change based on the needs of each story. The creators prioritize what works for each individual project over maintaining perfect continuity across all SpongeBob content. This variation in King Neptune connects to a larger question about how different SpongeBob projects relate to each other. 35. The movie versus series canon debate. SpongeBob SquarePants has produced multiple movies alongside the television series. The first movie was released in 2004. Later films followed in subsequent years. But here is something most people don't know. The first movie is considered canon and part of the official SpongeBob timeline. Later films are debated, but generally accepted as part of the same continuity. This has been a topic of discussion among fans and even among people who work on the show. Steven Hillenberg originally intended the first movie to serve as a series finale. He designed it to conclude SpongeBob's story. After the movie, Hillenberg stepped back from day-to-day involvement with the show. However, Nickelodeon continued producing new episodes because the show remained popular. This creates a strange situation. The movie was meant to be an ending, but the series continued. Later episodes sometimes reference events from the movie. This suggests the movie happened within the show's timeline, even though it was designed as a conclusion. The second and third movies were created after many more seasons of television had aired. Their relationship to the series timeline is less clear. They do not contradict the series, but they also do not fit neatly into any specific point in the ongoing story. The creators have not provided definitive answers about how all the movies fit with the series. They seem to treat each project as part of the SpongeBob universe, without worrying too much about exact chronological placement. This flexible approach to canon allows each project to tell the best story possible, without being constrained by perfect continuity. The first movie does contain one specific detail about SpongeBob's character that sparked discussion. 36. SpongeBob's movie age reference. The first SpongeBob movie tells the story of SpongeBob trying to save Mr. Krabs and prove himself. Throughout the film, SpongeBob faces challenges and grows as a character. But here's something most people don't know. The movie suggests SpongeBob is emotionally young, and his maturity is questioned by other characters. This happens during a key scene where SpongeBob confronts doubts about whether he is ready for more responsibility. The movie directly addresses the question of whether SpongeBob is a kid or an adult. In the film, Mr. Krabs chooses Squidward for a promotion instead of SpongeBob. When SpongeBob asks why, Mr. Krabs tells him he is just a kid. This moment is central to the movie's plot. SpongeBob must prove he is mature enough to handle serious responsibilities. The movie treats SpongeBob's emotional age as ambiguous. He works a job and lives independently like an adult, but he acts childish and naive in many situations. The film explores this tension between SpongeBob's adult responsibilities and his childlike personality. This moment is unique to the film. The television series rarely addresses SpongeBob's maturity level so directly. The show usually just presents SpongeBob as he is, without questioning whether his behavior is appropriate for his age. The movie makes this subtext into actual text. By confronting the question of SpongeBob's emotional maturity, the movie engages with something that has been present in the character from the beginning. He exists in a space between childhood and adulthood, and the film acknowledges this directly. The movie represents one way SpongeBob content extends beyond regular episodes, and another extension involves live-action segments. 37. Patchy the Pirate's role. Patchy the Pirate appears in special SpongeBob episodes. He is a live-action character played by a real actor. He wears a pirate costume and talks directly to the audience. But here is something most people don't know. Patchy represents the show's fandom and connects the cartoon to the real world. He is presented as SpongeBob's biggest fan. He lives in the real world and loves watching SpongeBob SquarePants. His segments frame certain special episodes by providing a live-action introduction or interruption. Patchy is played by Tom Kenny, the same person who voices SpongeBob. This creates an interesting connection between the animated character and the live-action fan. The voice of SpongeBob also plays SpongeBob's biggest fan in the real world. Patchy segments typically appear in holiday specials or milestone episodes. He provides transitions between parts of the episode, or adds context to the animated content. His presence reminds viewers that they are watching a television show and creates a layer of meta-commentary. The character of Patchy is not subtle. He is over the top in his enthusiasm and devotion to SpongeBob. This exaggerated fandom is played for comedy. Patchy has a parrot puppet named Potty who often argues with him and creates conflict in the live-action segments. These live-action portions give special episodes a different feel from regular episodes. They break the fourth wall and acknowledge the show's existence as entertainment. Patchy exists in our world and watches SpongeBob the same way real fans do. While Patchy provides a live-action element, the show also incorporates real-world sounds in unexpected ways. 38. The use of real animal sounds. SpongeBob SquarePants is a cartoon set underwater with talking sea creatures. Most sounds are created artificially for the show. But here is something most people don't know. Some sound effects come from real recordings of actual animals. The show's sound designers use authentic animal sounds mixed with created sounds. This adds a layer of realism to the cartoon world. One specific example involves dolphin sounds. Dolphins make clicking, whistling, and chirping noises. These real dolphin vocalizations appear in SpongeBob episodes. Some of these sounds are used in place of curse words. When a character in SpongeBob would swear, the audio cuts to a dolphin sound instead. This became a running joke in the show. The use of real animal sounds connects SpongeBob back to the actual ocean. Even though the show features talking sponges and underwater campfires, the presence of authentic ocean animal sounds grounds the show in reality. Viewers might not consciously notice these real sounds, but they add authenticity to the audio landscape. Sound designers often pull from libraries of recorded animal sounds. These recordings were made by people who went into nature and captured actual animal vocalizations. The sounds are then edited and incorporated into various media projects, including cartoons. By mixing real animal sounds with created sound effects, SpongeBob builds a richer audio environment. The show sounds like a cartoon, but also includes genuine pieces of the natural world. Real animal sounds are just one part of how the show creates its distinctive audio identity. 39. Realistic ocean sound design. The audio in SpongeBob includes music, dialogue, and sound effects, but underneath all of these elements, there is another layer of sound. But here is something most people don't know. Background sounds mimic underwater environments, and these sounds are kept soft and repetitive. The show creates an ambient soundscape that suggests being underwater without overwhelming the dialogue and main action. Real underwater environments have distinctive sounds: water moving, bubbles rising, pressure changes, and distant vibrations all create a unique acoustic environment. SpongeBob's sound designers recreate these qualities in subtle ways. The background ocean sounds help establish the setting. Even when characters are talking or music is playing, there are quiet water sounds underneath. These sounds are mixed low so they do not distract from the main audio, but they are present enough to create atmosphere. This attention to background sound creates a calming tone. The The gentle, repetitive nature of ocean sounds has a soothing effect. People often find water sounds relaxing, which fits with SpongeBob's generally lighthearted and pleasant atmosphere. Sound designers balance the need for realistic ocean ambience with the need for clear dialogue and comedy. If the water sounds were too loud, they would interfere with the voices and jokes. If they were absent, the show would feel less connected to its underwater setting. The background sounds contribute to making Bikini Bottom feel like a real place that exists beneath the ocean, rather than just a cartoon backdrop. And one specific sound element connects the show to its educational roots. 40. The French narrator's identity. Many SpongeBob episodes begin with a voice speaking in a French accent. This narrator introduces the setting and provides context. He often says phrases like, "Ah, the sea," or describes what is happening in Bikini Bottom. But here is something most people don't know. The narrator speaks with a French accent to reference early ocean documentaries. This is a deliberate homage to a specific style of nature filmmaking. Steven Hillenberg was inspired by ocean documentaries he watched growing up, particularly those featuring French oceanographer Jacques Cousteau. Jacques Cousteau was one of the most famous ocean explorers in history. His documentaries about marine life aired on television for decades. Cousteau had a distinctive French accent when speaking English. His voice became associated with ocean exploration and education. By giving SpongeBob's narrator a French accent, Hillenberg connected his cartoon to the documentary tradition he loved. The narrator sounds like someone who might narrate a serious ocean documentary, but instead he is introducing a comedy about a talking sponge. This choice adds an educational flavor to SpongeBob, without making the show actually educational. The French narrator provides an air of sophistication and scientific observation. He describes Bikini Bottom the way Cousteau might describe a coral reef. The narrator appears periodically throughout the series. His presence frames episodes and provides transitions between scenes. He gives SpongeBob a connection to real ocean documentary filmmaking while maintaining its identity as a cartoon comedy. This blend of educational inspiration and entertainment continues throughout many aspects of the show. 41. SpongeBob's employment stability. SpongeBob works at the Krusty Krab as a fry cook. This is his primary job throughout the entire series. He arrives enthusiastically every day and takes his work seriously. But here is something most people don't know. SpongeBob rarely leaves the Krusty Krab for other employment, and his loyalty to this job is remarkably consistent. Across hundreds of episodes spanning over 25 years, SpongeBob remains dedicated to the same position at the same restaurant. This stability is unusual for a cartoon character. In most long-running shows, characters try different jobs or careers for variety. But SpongeBob stays at the Krusty Krab. He does not get promoted. He does not quit to pursue other opportunities. He does not grow bored with his work. His enthusiasm for fry cooking remains constant from the first episode to the most recent. This employment stability grounds the entire series. The Krusty Krab serves as a central location where many episodes take place. Because SpongeBob always works there, viewers always know where to find him during work hours. The restaurant becomes as important to the show as SpongeBob's Pineapple House. SpongeBob's dedication to his job also defines his character. He genuinely loves being a fry cook. He takes pride in making Krabby Patties. His work gives his life meaning and purpose. This positive attitude toward work is part of what makes SpongeBob optimistic and happy. The show occasionally features episodes where SpongeBob temporarily loses his job or tries something different. But these situations are always resolved by the end of the episode. SpongeBob returns to the Krusty Krab and everything goes back to normal. His employment there is a constant that never permanently changes. While SpongeBob finds fulfillment in his stable career, another character struggles with very different professional outcomes. 42. Squidward's failed art career. Squidward considers himself an artist and musician. He paints, sculpts, and plays the clarinet. He believes he has genuine talent and deserves recognition. But here's something most people don't know. Squidward repeatedly fails at art and music throughout the series, and these failures are acknowledged by other characters. His lack of success is not just implied. Other characters directly tell him that his art is bad and his music is terrible. Squidward submits his artwork to galleries and competitions. He is rejected every time. When he does get opportunities to display his work, people react negatively. They do not understand his art or appreciate what he is trying to create. The art world does not embrace him the way he believes it should. His clarinet playing receives similar responses. When Squidward performs, audiences leave. Neighbors complain about the noise. People cover their ears. Even Squidward's own mother struggles to say anything positive about his music. The evidence of his lack of talent is overwhelming. These repeated failures reinforce Squidward's frustration with his life. He works a job he hates at the Krusty Krab while dreaming of being a successful artist. But his dreams never come true. He is trapped in a life he does not want, unable to achieve the artistic recognition he craves. The show uses Squidward's failed ambitions to create a specific type of comedy. His delusions about his own talent contrast with reality. He cannot see what everyone else sees clearly. This self-deception makes him both funny and somewhat tragic. Squidward's consistent failure at art mirrors how other characters experience their own patterns of employment struggles. 43. Patrick's employment attempts. Patrick's star usually does not work. He spends his days relaxing under his rock or playing with SpongeBob. He does not seem to need money or have any responsibilities. But here is something most people don't know. Patrick briefly works in a few episodes, but these jobs never last. The show occasionally features Patrick attempting employment. He tries different positions and careers, but he always quits, gets fired, or the job simply ends by the conclusion of the episode. Patrick's inability to hold a job matches his personality perfectly. He is not intelligent or motivated enough to succeed in most work environments. He does not understand what is expected of him. He makes mistakes constantly. Employers quickly realize that Patrick cannot handle the responsibilities they give him. In some episodes, Patrick's brief employment creates conflict with SpongeBob. Their friendship suffers when Patrick becomes SpongeBob's boss, or when work responsibilities interfere with their playtime. These episodes explore how employment can change relationships. But Patrick's employment never becomes permanent. By the next episode, he is back to his usual unemployed lifestyle. The show resets his situation to the baseline, where Patrick has no job and no apparent source of income. How he affords food or maintains his rock home is never explained. This pattern of temporary employment, followed by a return to unemployment, keeps Patrick's character consistent. He is meant to be the lazy friend with no responsibilities. Giving him a permanent job would change this fundamental aspect of his character. Patrick's lack of steady employment contrasts sharply with another location's complete lack of success. 44. The Chum Bucket's lack of customers. The Chum Bucket is a restaurant run by Plankton. It sits across the street from the Krusty Krab. Plankton tries to run a successful business and compete with Mr. Krabs. But here is something most people don't know. The Chum Bucket rarely succeeds in attracting customers, and the restaurant is almost never shown with actual paying patrons. Episodes occasionally show the interior of the Chum Bucket. It is always empty. No customers sit at tables. No one orders food. The business appears to be perpetually failing. This lack of customers is not temporary or occasional. It is the permanent state of the Chum Bucket. Plankton cannot get people to eat at his restaurant. The food is bad. The atmosphere is uninviting. The location has a terrible reputation. No one in Bikini Bottom wants to eat chum. The Chum Bucket's failure drives many episodes. Plankton's motivation to steal the Krabby Patty's secret formula comes from his business failing. If he could make food as good as the Krusty Krab, he would have customers. His villain schemes are actually desperate attempts to save his failing restaurant. Occasionally, episodes show the Chum Bucket temporarily gaining customers through trickery or special circumstances. But these successes never last. By the end of the episode, the Chum Bucket is empty again. the restaurant returns to its default state of complete failure. This consistent failure is necessary for the show's structure. The Chum Bucket must keep failing, so Plankton keeps trying to steal the formula. If his restaurant succeeded, his entire character motivation would disappear. The Chum Bucket's repeated failure reflects a larger pattern in how Plankton approaches his goals. 45. Plankton's repeated failure pattern. Plankton schemes to steal the Krabby Patty's secret formula in countless episodes. He creates elaborate plans, he uses technology and disguises. He tries everything he can think of to get the formula. But here is something most people don't know. Plankton follows similar plans each time and rarely adapts successfully from past failures. He does not learn from his mistakes. He keeps trying the same types of schemes even though they never work. This repetition is a consistent aspect of his character. Plankton's plans often involve sneaking into the Krusty Krab, creating a distraction, or tricking SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs. These basic strategies repeat with minor variations. He might use a different disguise or a different piece of technology, but the core approach remains the same. The pattern of failure is so consistent that other characters expect it. Mr. Krabs knows Plankton will try to steal the formula. SpongeBob recognizes Plankton's schemes. Even Karen, Plankton's computer wife, predicts that his plans will fail. Everyone knows what will happen, but Plankton keeps trying anyway. This repetitive failure could make Plankton a boring character, but the show keeps his schemes entertaining by varying the details while maintaining the basic pattern. Each plan is slightly different. The specific ways he fails change, but the outcome is always the same. Plankton's refusal to give up despite constant failure makes him both pathetic and admirable. He is determined and persistent. He never stops trying, but he also never succeeds. This creates a character who is funny because of his predictability. While Plankton struggles to recognize patterns in his own failures, another character shows surprising awareness in different areas. 46. SpongeBob's emotional awareness. SpongeBob is often portrayed as naive and childlike. He does not always understand complex situations. He can be oblivious to things happening around him. But here is something most people don't know. SpongeBob often understands other people's feelings and shows genuine empathy despite his childish behavior. This emotional intelligence is a consistent trait that appears throughout the series. SpongeBob notices when others are sad, angry, or upset. He responds to their emotions with care and concern. When Squidward is having a bad day, SpongeBob tries to cheer him up. When Patrick feels left out, SpongeBob includes him. When Sandy is homesick, SpongeBob attempts to help. He is attuned to the emotional states of people around him and wants them to be happy. This emotional awareness exists alongside his childish personality. SpongeBob can be silly and immature while also being emotionally perceptive. These traits do not contradict each other. Young children are often very aware of emotions, even when they do not understand more complex concepts. SpongeBob's empathy makes him a good friend. His relationships with other characters are built on genuine care. He does not just spend time with Patrick because it is convenient. He truly values their friendship and wants Patrick to be happy. The same applies to his other relationships. This emotional intelligence prevents SpongeBob from being just a one-dimensional, childish character. He has depth and complexity. He can be both innocent and aware. This combination makes him more interesting and helps explain why other characters tolerate his sometimes annoying behavior. SpongeBob's emotional awareness is one type of intelligence, but he demonstrates other kinds as well. 47. SpongeBob's education level. SpongeBob works as a fry cook and attends boating school. These roles might suggest limited education. He often acts foolish and makes simple mistakes. But here is something most people don't know. SpongeBob demonstrates unexpected knowledge and uses advanced vocabulary at times. This suggests he has more education or intelligence than his behavior might indicate. He knows facts about science, history, and culture that go beyond basic knowledge. In various episodes, SpongeBob references complex concepts or uses sophisticated words. He sometimes displays expertise in specific subjects. These moments reveal that SpongeBob knows more than he typically shows. His childish behavior hides a broader base of knowledge. This hidden intelligence creates interesting moments when it surfaces. SpongeBob might say something surprisingly smart or demonstrate unexpected skills. These glimpses of intelligence contrast with his usual naive personality. They suggest that SpongeBob is not actually stupid, just eternally optimistic and innocent. The show never explains where SpongeBob got his education or why he knows certain things. He simply has knowledge when the story needs him to have it. This flexibility allows writers to give SpongeBob whatever information serves the plot without worrying about consistency. Some fans theorize that SpongeBob is actually very intelligent, but chooses to act childish because it makes him happy. The show never confirms this interpretation, but it remains a possibility. SpongeBob might be smarter than he seems, and simply prefers living with childlike joy. This complexity in SpongeBob's intelligence level adds depth to his character and prevents him from being predictable. While SpongeBob's character has hidden depths, the show's visual style also contains surprising choices. 48. The use of close-up gross art SpongeBob typically has a clean, simple art style. Characters are drawn with smooth lines and bright colors. The animation is pleasant to look at. But here is something most people don't know. Extreme close-ups appear suddenly throughout the series, and they contrast sharply with the normal art style. These close-ups show characters in disturbing detail. Skin texture, pores, individual hairs, and other gross details suddenly become visible. The pleasant cartoon world transforms into something unsettling. These close-ups are intentional artistic choices. The animators deliberately create these jarring moments. They draw characters in a completely different style that emphasizes ugliness and discomfort. The shift happens without warning and only lasts for a few seconds. The technique serves comedy purposes. The sudden appearance of a disgusting close-up surprises viewers. The contrast between the normal, pleasant art and the grotesque, detailed art creates shock value. Children often find these moments both funny and slightly disturbing. This approach to visual comedy comes from classic animation traditions. Old cartoons frequently used extreme close-ups and distorted imagery for comedic effect. SpongeBob draws on this history while adding its own distinctive style to the technique. The gross close-ups have become a signature element of SpongeBob. Fans recognize these moments and expect them. They are part of what makes SpongeBob's visual style unique among modern cartoons. The show is not afraid to be ugly when it serves the comedy. These intentional visual choices are just one way the show's animation style has evolved over time. 49. Animation style changes over seasons. SpongeBob has been on television for over 25 years. The show began in 1999 and continues producing new episodes today. Visual media technology has changed dramatically during this time, but here is something most people don't know. Later seasons have smoother animation compared to early episodes, and the visual style has become more polished. Early episodes look more textured and hand-drawn. Later episodes look cleaner and more digitally refined. These changes reflect improvements in animation technology and production techniques. The first season of SpongeBob used traditional methods that gave the show a slightly rougher appearance. Lines were less precise. Colors had slight variations. The overall look had a handmade quality that came from the production methods available in the late 1990s. As the show continued, production shifted to more advanced digital techniques. Computer-assisted animation allowed for greater precision. Colors became more consistent. Movement became smoother. The show maintained its basic visual style, but executed it with more polish. Some fans prefer the look of early seasons. They feel the rougher animation had more character and charm. The imperfections gave the show personality. Other fans appreciate the cleaner look of later seasons. The improved animation quality makes the show more visually appealing. These changes were gradual rather than sudden. each season looked slightly different from the previous one. Over many years, these small changes added up to a noticeable shift in the show's overall appearance. The evolution of animation techniques affected many aspects of production, including how backgrounds were created. 50. Hand-painted backgrounds. The backgrounds in SpongeBob show the underwater world of Bikini Bottom. Coral, rocks, sand, and buildings create the environment where characters live. These backgrounds are important for establishing the show's visual identity. But here is something most people don't know. Early backgrounds were painted traditionally, using actual paint on physical surfaces. Artists created these backgrounds by hand, before they were photographed and incorporated into episodes. This traditional painting technique gave early SpongeBob a distinctive, soft visual quality. Hand-painted backgrounds have texture and depth that digital backgrounds cannot perfectly replicate. Real paint on real surfaces creates subtle variations in color and tone. Brushstrokes leave marks. The paint has physical dimension. All of these qualities come through in the final image. The backgrounds in early SpongeBob episodes feel warm and organic. They look like they exist in a real space, rather than being purely digital creations. This grounded quality helps balance the cartoon characters. The realistic backgrounds make the fantasy elements feel more believable. Later episodes shifted to digital background creation. Artists still designed and painted the backgrounds, but they did so using computers and digital tools. This change allowed for faster production and easier modifications. But it also changed the subtle visual qualities that came from traditional painting. The shift from hand-painted to digital backgrounds is part of the broader evolution of animation technology. The change brought benefits in efficiency and flexibility, while altering some of the visual characteristics that defined early episodes. These background changes connect to larger shifts in how animated shows are produced and how their visual styles evolve over time. 51. Music Library Origins. SpongeBob SquarePants has a very distinctive sound. The music that plays during episodes is instantly recognizable. Songs and background tracks create the show's unique audio atmosphere. But here is something most people don't know. Many songs in SpongeBob come from stock music libraries, rather than being composed specifically for the show. The production team uses the APM and Paramount music libraries. These are collections of pre-recorded music that television shows and films can license and use. Only about 30% of the music in SpongeBob comes from original compositions created specifically for the show. The other 70% comes from these existing music libraries. The show's music team searches through thousands of tracks to find the perfect piece for each scene. Using library music might seem like a cheap approach, but it actually gives SpongeBob its unique sound. The music libraries contain all kinds of unusual tracks that were recorded decades ago. Many of these recordings have a quality and character that new music cannot replicate. They sound vintage and distinct. The libraries are available to any show that wants to license them. But SpongeBob's music team developed a specific style in how they selected and used the tracks. They chose pieces that fit the underwater tropical theme. They picked music that enhanced comedy rather than overpowering it. These careful choices created SpongeBob's signature sound. Using library music also allowed the show to have a much more varied soundtrack than most cartoons. Instead of relying on a few composers to create everything, the team could pull from a huge collection of existing recordings. This variety keeps the show's music fresh and interesting across hundreds of episodes. The approach to selecting library music connects directly to one specific type of sound that defines the show. 52. Hawaiian music influence. If you listen carefully to SpongeBob episodes, you will notice a distinctive tropical sound throughout many scenes. This warm, island-style music creates a relaxed atmosphere. But here is something most people don't know. Hawaiian music became central to SpongeBob's sound for a specific reason related to the show's setting. Bikini Bottom is located somewhere in Polynesia. The Marshall Islands, where Bikini Atoll exists in real life, are in the Pacific Ocean. Hawaii and other Polynesian islands are part of this same region. Steven Hillenberg wanted the music to reflect this Pacific Island setting. He specifically requested that the show sound like what he called those crazy Hawaiian records from old Betty Boop cartoons. He had a clear vision for the audio atmosphere he wanted to create. The Hawaiian sound would make Bikini Bottom feel like a warm, tropical place. This Hawaiian music creates a relaxed, laid-back feeling, even when chaotic things happen in the show. Characters might be running around or getting into trouble, but the music maintains a certain calm quality. It makes Bikini Bottom feel like a pleasant place to be, despite all the comedy and conflict. The steel guitar is particularly important to this Hawaiian sound. The distinctive twangy quality of Hawaiian steel guitar appears constantly throughout SpongeBob. This instrument has become so associated with the show that many people cannot hear Hawaiian steel guitar without thinking of SpongeBob. The choice to use Hawaiian music was not random or accidental. It was a deliberate decision to connect the show's audio to its geographic setting. The music tells viewers something about where Bikini Bottom exists, even without words. This Hawaiian influence is particularly evident in one specific instrument that appears throughout the series. 53. The ukulele motif. The ukulele is a small stringed instrument that originated in Hawaii. It has a bright, cheerful sound that is lighter than a guitar. The ukulele appears frequently in SpongeBob's soundtrack. But here is something most people don't know. The ukulele is used often throughout SpongeBob, specifically because it produces soft, calming sounds. The instrument's gentle tone fits the show's overall pleasant atmosphere. Even when stories involve conflict or problems, the ukulele maintains a sense of fun and lightness. The ukulele connects to the Hawaiian music influence that defines much of SpongeBob's sound. As a traditional Hawaiian instrument, it reinforces the tropical Pacific Island feeling of Bikini Bottom. The sound immediately suggests warmth, sunshine, and relaxation. The instrument's simple, cheerful quality also matches SpongeBob's personality. SpongeBob is optimistic and happy. The ukulele sounds optimistic and happy. The instrument's voice aligns with the main character's emotional state. This creates sonic harmony between character and music. Ukuleles are relatively easy instruments to play at a basic level. They have a friendly, accessible quality. This approachability fits with SpongeBob's goal of being entertainment for everyone. The music does not try to be complex or sophisticated. It tries to be pleasant and welcoming. The ukulele appears in various forms throughout the show's music. Sometimes it plays simple melodies. Other times it provides rhythmic background. The instrument is versatile enough to serve many different musical purposes while maintaining its distinctive character. The careful selection of instruments like the ukulele extends to other distinctive sounds in the show, including SpongeBob's own voice. 54. SpongeBob's laugh design. SpongeBob has one of the most recognizable laughs in animation. That high-pitched giggling sound is instantly identifiable. Everyone who has watched the show knows it immediately. But here is something most people don't know. SpongeBob's laugh was created to sound unique and memorable from the very beginning. Tom Kenny, the voice actor, developed this distinctive laugh specifically for the character. The laugh needed to capture SpongeBob's personality, innocent, joyful, and slightly unusual. The laugh is higher pitched than most character laughs. It has a rhythmic, musical quality to it. The pattern of the giggling has a specific cadence that repeats consistently. This consistency makes the laugh recognizable even when you cannot see the screen. Tom Kenny based SpongeBob's laugh partly on dolphin sounds. Dolphins make clicking, chirping noises that have a playful quality. By incorporating elements of dolphin vocalizations, Kenny created a laugh that fits the underwater setting while sounding completely original. The laugh also has a childlike innocence to it. It sounds pure and genuine, not mean or sarcastic. This matches SpongeBob's personality perfectly. When SpongeBob laughs, it comes from real joy and amusement. The sound of the laugh communicates this sincerity. Creating a memorable character laugh is more difficult than it might seem. The laugh needs to be pleasant enough to hear repeatedly without becoming annoying. It needs to be distinctive without being too strange. Kenny found the perfect balance with SpongeBob's laugh. The laugh has become so iconic that people can identify SpongeBob just from hearing it, even without seeing the character or hearing any dialogue. Just as SpongeBob's laugh required careful design, all the voice performances in the show involved specific creative decisions. 55. Voice actor inspirations. The voice actors in SpongeBob created memorable characters through their vocal performances. Each character sounds distinct and recognizable. These voices did not happen by accident. But here is something most people don't know. Voice actors based their characters on personal ideas and specific inspirations they brought to the roles. Tom Kenny shaped SpongeBob's tone carefully by thinking about the character's personality and finding a voice that matched. He described the voice as being between a child and an adult, capturing SpongeBob's unique position. When developing SpongeBob's voice, Kenny compared it to classic comedians. He said SpongeBob sounds like a mix between Stan Laurel and Jerry Lewis. Both of these performers had a certain childlike innocence combined with adult energy. Kenny wanted SpongeBob to have this same quality. These inspirations helped Kenny find the right vocal approach. Instead of just making up a random funny voice, he drew on the work of comedians he admired. This grounded SpongeBob's voice in a real performance tradition. Other voice actors brought their own inspirations to their characters. The choices they made about pitch, accent, rhythm, and tone all came from conscious decisions about who the characters were and how they should sound. Voice acting requires more than just reading lines. Actors must create a complete vocal personality. They think about how the character would speak in different situations. They find inspiration in real people, other performers, and their own imagination. The voices in SpongeBob feel natural and consistent because the actors developed clear ideas about their characters from the beginning. These careful choices remain stable throughout hundreds of episodes, and one aspect of SpongeBob's character has remained particularly consistent across the entire series. 56. SpongeBob's optimism consistency. SpongeBob is known for being positive and cheerful. He approaches life with enthusiasm and hope. He sees the good in people and situations. But here is something most people don't know. SpongeBob stays optimistic across all seasons, and he rarely becomes cynical or bitter. This consistency is remarkable for a character who has existed for over 25 years. Many long-running shows gradually change their characters, but SpongeBob remains fundamentally the same. Throughout hundreds of episodes, SpongeBob faces disappointments and setbacks. He fails his driving test repeatedly. People get annoyed with him. Things do not always work out the way he hopes, but these experiences do not make him pessimistic or negative. This unchanging optimism keeps the show emotionally light and pleasant. No matter what happens, viewers can count on SpongeBob to remain cheerful. He might feel sad temporarily, but by the next scene or next episode, he returns to his baseline happiness. Some shows use character development to show growth and change. SpongeBob takes a different approach. The show finds value in consistency and stability. SpongeBob's eternal optimism becomes something viewers can rely on. It creates comfort and familiarity. The decision to keep SpongeBob consistently positive was deliberate. Steven Hillenberg wanted to create a character who embodied innocent joy. Allowing SpongeBob to become cynical would betray this core concept. The character needs to stay optimistic to be himself. This consistency extends beyond just SpongeBob to other characters who also maintain their essential traits across the series. While SpongeBob's optimism never wavers, another character occasionally reveals hidden complexity beneath his grumpy exterior. 57. Squidward's moral code. Squidward is known for being grumpy, selfish, and mean. He complains constantly and treats SpongeBob and Patrick with contempt. He seems to only care about himself. But here is something most people don't know. Squidward occasionally helps others, and these moments reveal hidden depth in his character. The show includes subtle instances where Squidward does the right thing despite his usual selfishness. These moments are not heavily advertised or made into big character revelations. They just quietly happen. In certain episodes, Squidward shows concern for SpongeBob's well-being. He protects SpongeBob from danger. He gives SpongeBob advice. He even sacrifices his own comfort to help. These actions contradict his usual behavior and show that Squidward has a moral compass underneath his grumpiness. Squidward's occasional kindness makes him more interesting than a purely negative character would be. He is not completely heartless. He has limits to his selfishness. Deep down, he cares about others, even though he tries to hide it. These moments are intentionally subtle. The show does not make a big deal about Squidward being nice. It just shows it happening and moves on. This subtlety makes the moments feel more genuine. Squidward is not learning to be better. He is simply revealing aspects of himself that are always there. The complexity in Squidward's character prevents him from becoming predictable or one-dimensional. Viewers know he will generally be grumpy and mean, but occasionally he surprises them. This unpredictability keeps the character fresh. Squidward's hidden depths mirror similar complexity in another character who seems simple on the surface. 58. Patrick's rare moments of intelligence. Patrick Star is consistently portrayed as unintelligent. He says confused things and does not understand basic concepts. This is his defining characteristic. But here is something most people don't know. Patrick sometimes shows brief insight or intelligence, though these moments are short-lived and treated as exceptions. Occasionally, Patrick says something surprisingly smart or demonstrates unexpected knowledge. These flashes of intelligence create comedy through contrast. When Patrick has a moment of clarity, it usually does not last. He might make an intelligent observation and then immediately return to his usual confused state. The show presents these moments as anomalies rather than signs that Patrick is becoming smarter. Some episodes play with the idea that Patrick might be smarter than he seems. Maybe he chooses to act dumb because it makes life easier. Maybe he understands more than he lets on. But the show never confirms these interpretations. Patrick's occasional intelligence remains ambiguous. These rare smart moments serve several purposes. They keep Patrick from being completely predictable. They create surprise when he says something unexpectedly wise. They also suggest that intelligence is not completely absent, just deeply buried under layers of laziness and confusion. The comedy comes from the contrast between Patrick's usual stupidity and his occasional insight. When someone who is normally confused suddenly says something profound, it catches other characters and viewers off guard. Then Patrick goes back to being confused, and the moment passes. These brief glimpses of intelligence appear in Patrick without changing who he fundamentally is, similar to how another character maintains accuracy in a specific area. 59. Sandy's scientific accuracy. Sandy Cheeks is a scientist and inventor. She builds equipment, conducts experiments, and solves problems using science. Her character is defined by intelligence and technical skill. But here is something most people don't know. Scientific terms used by Sandy are real terms from actual science, though they are simplified for children to understand. The show makes an effort to use accurate scientific language when Sandy speaks. She does not just say made-up technical-sounding words. She uses real terminology. When Sandy talks about physics, chemistry, or biology, the words she uses have real meanings. The show's writers research actual scientific concepts and incorporate them into Sandy's dialogue. This attention to accuracy reflects Stephen Hillenberg's background in marine biology and his respect for science. The scientific accuracy is simplified and adapted for a children's cartoon. Sandy does not give long, complex explanations. She does not use highly technical jargon that would confuse young viewers. But the foundation of what she says is based on real science. This approach serves multiple purposes. It exposes children to real scientific vocabulary in a fun context. It makes Sandy's character feel more authentic. It honors the educational roots of the show, even though SpongeBob is primarily entertainment. Sandy represents a positive portrayal of science and intelligence. She is cool, capable, and confident. Her scientific knowledge makes her powerful rather than nerdy or weak. This sends a good message about the value of education and expertise. The show's commitment to scientific accuracy in Sandy's character extends to how her home environment functions. 60. The tree dome's water physics. Sandy's tree dome is an air-filled dome at the bottom of the ocean. Inside, Sandy can breathe normally and live like she would on land. The structure keeps water out and air in. But here is something most people don't know. Water does not enter the dome because it follows basic pressure logic that keeps the environment separated. The tree dome operates on simplified but real physics principles. Air pressure inside the dome prevents water from entering. The dome is sealed to maintain this pressure difference. This is actually similar to how real underwater structures work. Submarines and underwater research stations use similar principles to keep water out. Air pressure can hold back water if the structure is properly sealed and maintained. SpongeBob simplifies these concepts, but bases them on real science. The dome also addresses what happens when water-breathing creatures enter an air environment. SpongeBob and Patrick need water to breathe, so they wear helmets filled with water when visiting Sandy. This is a reversal of how humans use air tanks when diving underwater. The internal consistency of these rules shows that someone thought about the physics of Sandy's living situation. They created logical explanations for how a land mammal could survive at the bottom of the ocean. The science is simplified for comedy, but the basic concepts are sound. Sandy's tree dome represents one of the more scientifically grounded elements in SpongeBob. While the show features talking sponges and underwater campfires, the tree dome follows actual physical principles. This mix of fantasy and reality is part of what makes SpongeBob's world interesting. But not everything in Bikini Bottom attempts to follow real-world physics, as we can see with certain impossible situations the show embraces. 61. Fire underwater. Gags. Fire appears regularly in SpongeBob SquarePants. Campfires burn on the ocean floor. Explosions create flames. Characters light candles and cook with stoves. All of this happens underwater. But here is something most people don't know. Fire appearing underwater is acknowledged as unrealistic by the show itself. SpongeBob does not pretend this makes scientific sense. Instead, the show treats fire underwater as an accepted part of its cartoon logic. Characters sometimes even comment on how strange it is. In some episodes, characters point out that fire should not be able to burn underwater. This acknowledgement shows that the creators know fire underwater is impossible. They include it anyway because it serves the comedy and the storytelling. The show is self-aware about breaking the rules of physics. Real fire cannot burn underwater because combustion requires oxygen in a specific form. Water prevents the chemical reaction that creates fire. Flames need fuel, heat, and oxygen to exist. Underwater environments do not provide the right conditions for fire. SpongeBob ignores this reality for practical reasons. Many common activities involve fire. Cooking uses stoves and ovens. Camping involves campfires. Celebrations use candles on birthday cakes. If the show followed real physics, all of these activities would be impossible. The characters could not cook, camp, or celebrate birthdays in familiar ways. By allowing fire to exist underwater, the show can include normal human activities in an underwater setting. This makes Bikini Bottom feel more relatable, despite being a fantasy world. Viewers can connect with characters doing familiar things, even though those things scientifically should not be possible. The acceptance of fire underwater is part of a larger pattern of how the show handles impossible physics. 62. Air bubbles as physics tools. Bubbles appear constantly in SpongeBob. They rise from the ocean floor. They float through scenes. Characters blow bubbles for fun. Bubbles are everywhere in Bikini Bottom. But here is something most people don't know. Air bubbles replace complex scientific explanations throughout the show. Instead of trying to explain how things work underwater, the show uses bubbles as a visual shorthand. Bubbles show movement, force, and action without requiring detailed physics. When something moves quickly underwater, bubbles trail behind it. When something hits the ground, bubbles fly up. When characters talk or breathe, bubbles come out of their mouths. These bubbles simplify how the underwater world operates. They make motion and action visible and understandable. Real bubbles do rise through water and indicate movement. SpongeBob exaggerates this natural phenomenon and uses it constantly. The bubbles become a visual language that communicates information to viewers. You can understand what is happening by watching where bubbles go and how they move. The show also uses bubbles for transitions between scenes. The screen might fill with bubbles as one scene ends and another begins. This technique is unique to SpongeBob and reinforces the underwater setting. Every transition reminds viewers that this world exists beneath the ocean. Bubbles serve both practical and aesthetic purposes. They help show motion and action in a medium where traditional animation techniques might not clearly communicate underwater movement. They also make the show look distinctively aquatic. The constant presence of bubbles ensures that viewers never forget they are watching an underwater story. This simplified approach to underwater physics extends to how the show handles another impossible situation. Food without decay. Food appears in many SpongeBob episodes. The Krusty Krab serves Krabby Patties. Characters eat at home. Food is prepared, served, and consumed throughout the series. But here is something most people don't know. Food never spoils in Bikini Bottom, and this avoids realism issues that would complicate stories. Real food left out underwater would decay very quickly. Bacteria and other organisms would break it down. But in SpongeBob, food stays fresh indefinitely, unless the plot requires otherwise. This choice keeps stories simple and focused on comedy rather than realistic consequences. If food spoiled naturally, the Krusty Krab would have constant health problems. Characters would get sick from eating old food. Storage and preservation would become major concerns. These realistic details would distract from the actual stories. The show can feature food-related plots without worrying about decomposition. An old Krabby Patty found under the grill might be gross for comedic purposes, but it will not be realistically rotten unless that serves the joke. Food exists in whatever state the story needs. This approach is common in cartoons. Most animated shows do not depict realistic food decay because it would create unpleasant visuals and unnecessary complications. SpongeBob follows this tradition while adding its own underwater twist. The show maintains enough realism to be relatable, but ignores realistic details that would interfere with entertainment. Food looks and acts like real food most of the time, but it does not follow real biology when that would make stories less fun or more complicated. Just as food remains unnaturally preserved, the characters themselves also maintain an unusual kind of consistency. Aging characters rarely change. SpongeBob has been on television since 1999. Over 25 years have passed in the real world. Hundreds of episodes have aired during this time. But here's something most people don't know. Characters do not visibly age, which keeps the timeline flexible and avoids continuity problems. SpongeBob looks exactly the same in recent episodes as he did in the first episode. Patrick, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and all other characters remain unchanged. Time passes, but they do not grow older. This decision allows the show to run indefinitely without dealing with aging. If characters aged in real time, SpongeBob would now be in his late 40s or early 50s. The show would have to address what happens as characters grow old. Stories would become complicated by the passage of time. By keeping characters the same age forever, SpongeBob can tell any story at any time. There is no pressure to show character development or life progression. Each episode exists in an eternal present where nothing has to change permanently. Many long-running animated shows use this approach. The Simpsons has run for over 35 years without the characters aging. South Park, Family Guy, and other cartoons maintain consistent character ages across decades. This allows the shows to continue indefinitely. The lack of aging does create some logical inconsistencies. Characters celebrate the same holidays repeatedly. They have the same jobs for decades. But viewers accept these inconsistencies because they understand the convention. Cartoon characters do not age unless aging serves a specific story purpose. This timeless quality extends to another aspect of the show's production that helps maintain visual consistency. 65. Background fish reuse. Bikini Bottom is populated by many sea creatures. Background characters fill scenes to make the city feel alive. They walk through the Krusty Krab, shop at stores, and appear in crowds. But here's something most people don't know. Many background fish repeat throughout the series, and their colors and shapes stay the same. The show reuses the same background character designs across hundreds of episodes. This saves significant production time and maintains visual consistency. Creating unique background characters for every scene would require enormous effort. Animators would need to design, draw, and animate countless different fish. Instead, the show uses a library of established background characters. These characters appear whenever the scene needs a crowd. Some background fish have appeared in so many episodes that fans recognize them. They become familiar faces even though they rarely speak or have important roles. Their repeated presence makes Bikini Bottom feel like a consistent place with regular inhabitants. The reuse of background characters is standard practice in animation. Most shows develop a set of background designs and use them repeatedly. This efficiency allows animators to focus their time and creativity on the main characters and important scenes. SpongeBob's background fish are designed simply enough to work in many different contexts. They can appear at the beach, in restaurants, at boating school, or anywhere else. Their generic designs make them versatile and useful for any scene. The repeated use of these background characters has an interesting side effect that developed over time. 66. Background fish names. The background fish in SpongeBob were originally just nameless extras. They existed to fill space and make Bikini Bottom feel populated. They were not meant to be individual characters. But here's something most people don't know. Some background characters were later given names through merchandise and special episodes. What started as anonymous background designs became semi-canonical characters with identities. This happened gradually as the show gained popularity and expanded beyond television. The names often describe the character's appearance or defining feature. These naming conventions make the background fish easier to identify and discuss. Merchandise, video games, and other SpongeBob products needed ways to refer to specific background characters. One famous example is Fred, the fish who screams, "My leg!" This background character appeared in many episodes, but was not named Fred originally. The name came later as fans and the show's creators recognized him as a recurring presence. His catchphrase made him memorable enough to deserve an identity. Other background fish received names through similar processes. They appeared often enough to become recognizable. Fans started discussing them. Eventually, official materials gave them names to meet this interest. These names exist in a gray area of canon. They are official in some contexts, but not necessarily referenced in the television show itself. The background fish might have names in a video game while remaining nameless in episodes. This creates layers of canon where some information is more official than others. The semi-canonical status of these names reflects how SpongeBob has expanded beyond just the television series into a larger multimedia franchise. While background characters gained names over time, another element of the show maintains helpful consistency for viewers. 67. Episode title accuracy. Every SpongeBob episode has a title. These titles appear at the beginning of episodes and help viewers know what they are about to watch. But here's something most people don't know. Episode titles usually describe the plot accurately, which helps viewers understand the theme before the story begins. The titles are not misleading or cryptic. They tell you what the episode will focus on in clear, direct language. If an episode is titled Pizza Delivery, the story involves delivering pizza. If it is called Jellyfishing, the characters go jellyfishing. The titles match the content. This straightforward approach respects viewers and helps them know what to expect. Some shows use clever or cryptic titles that do not reveal what the episode is about. This can create mystery, but also confusion. SpongeBob chooses clarity over cleverness. The titles function as useful labels rather than puzzles to solve. This approach makes the show easier to navigate. If you want to watch an episode about a specific topic or character, you can often identify it by the title alone. Parents can choose appropriate episodes for their children based on clear titles. The accuracy of titles also reflects the show's overall approach to storytelling. SpongeBob does not try to trick or surprise viewers with unexpected plot twists. The show is straightforward in its comedy and storytelling. The titles match this honest approach. Occasionally, titles might be slightly playful or use puns, but even these creative titles clearly indicate what the episode is about. The wordplay enhances the title without making it misleading. This clarity in titles extends to how the show handles another recurring element. 68. Holiday Episodes Timeline. SpongeBob has produced many holiday-themed episodes. Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day, and other holidays appear throughout the series. Characters celebrate, exchange gifts, and participate in seasonal activities. But here is something most people don't know. Holidays appear without yearly progression, and Christmas repeats without characters aging. The show can have multiple Christmas episodes without explaining why the characters are celebrating Christmas for the 5th or 10th time. Each holiday episode exists independently. This approach treats holidays as recurring events rather than specific moments in time. The show can explore different holiday stories without being constrained by continuity. One Christmas episode might focus on gift giving. Another might focus on decorations. Each tells its own story without referencing previous holiday episodes. The lack of yearly progression prevents awkward questions about time. If the show tracked which year each Christmas happened, viewers would notice that many years have passed. The characters would need to age or acknowledge the passage of time. By keeping holidays timeless, the show avoids these complications. Holiday episodes also allow the show to explore seasonal themes and traditions. Christmas episodes can teach about generosity and family. Halloween episodes can play with spooky imagery and costumes. These themed episodes provide variety while maintaining the show's core identity. The timeless nature of holiday episodes means they can be rewatched any year during the appropriate season. A Christmas episode from 2002 works just as well in 2026 because it does not reference specific years or events. The content remains fresh and relevant. This flexible timeline also affects how the show depicts character families when they occasionally appear. 69. SpongeBob's family appearances. SpongeBob has parents. His mother and father appear in several episodes throughout the series. They visit SpongeBob, and he visits them. The show acknowledges that SpongeBob has a family. But here is something most people don't know. SpongeBob's family appears rarely, and when shown, their designs sometimes vary slightly. The show does not maintain perfect consistency in how his parents look or act. Different episodes portray them in slightly different ways. This variation suggests loose continuity around family members. The show's creators prioritize what works for each individual episode over maintaining perfect consistency across all appearances. If a story needs SpongeBob's parents to act a certain way, they will act that way, regardless of how they behaved in previous episodes. SpongeBob's parents are natural sea sponges. They look round and lumpy, very different from SpongeBob's square kitchen sponge shape. This visual difference has never been explained. The show simply presents them as his parents, without addressing why they look so different from their son. The infrequent appearances of SpongeBob's family keep the focus on his life in Bikini Bottom. His parents exist in the background of his life. They are there when the story needs them, but do not interfere with the main dynamics between SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, and other regular characters. By keeping family appearances rare and loosely consistent, the show maintains flexibility. It can tell family-related stories when desired, without being locked into specific character portrayals or family dynamics. This loose approach to family continuity is even more pronounced with another character's relatives. 17 Patrick's family consistency. Patrick Star is SpongeBob's best friend and a main character. He has appeared in the vast majority of episodes since the show began. Occasionally, episodes feature Patrick's family members, but here is something most people don't know. Patrick's parents change across episodes, and this inconsistency is debated by fans but accepted by the show. Different episodes show Patrick with different parents. Their appearances, personalities, and even their existence varies depending on the episode. In some episodes, Patrick has one set of parents. In other episodes, he has different parents entirely. The show never acknowledges this contradiction, or attempts to explain it. Patrick's family situation simply is whatever each individual episode needs it to be. This creates obvious continuity problems that the show chooses not to address. Fans have noticed these inconsistencies and discussed them extensively. Some try to explain them through theories. Others accept them as mistakes or intentional flexibility. The show itself has made no official correction or explanation. The changing parents might reflect different writers working on different episodes without coordinating details. It might represent a deliberate choice to prioritize individual episode quality over overall continuity. Either way, the result is the same. Patrick's family background remains unclear and inconsistent. This approach fits with the show's general attitude toward continuity. Some elements stay rigidly consistent while others change freely. The creators decide which details matter and which can be flexible. Apparently, Patrick's exact family situation falls into the flexible category. While Patrick's family changes, another character's family is notably absent from the show entirely. 71. Squidward's family absence. Squidward Tentacles is one of the main characters in SpongeBob SquarePants. He appears in the majority of episodes and plays a central role in many stories. Unlike SpongeBob and Patrick, who occasionally have family members appear, Squidward's family is different. But here is something most people don't know. Squidward's family is almost never shown throughout the entire series. This absence isolates his character and reinforces certain aspects of his personality. While SpongeBob has parents who love and support him, Squidward exists largely alone in his Easter Island head house. The lack of family connections makes Squidward feel more solitary and bitter. He has no parents to visit, no siblings to call, no family gatherings to attend. He is alone with his art, his clarinet, and his annoying neighbors. This isolation contributes to his unhappiness. The show has occasionally referenced Squidward having family members. Brief mentions suggest relatives exist somewhere, but these family members rarely, if ever, appear on screen. They remain abstract concepts rather than actual characters in Squidward's life. This choice fits Squidward's character perfectly. He is meant to be lonely and unfulfilled. Having a loving family who supports him would contradict the character's fundamental nature. Squidward's life is supposed to feel empty and disappointing. The absence of family reinforces this emptiness. By keeping Squidward isolated, the show creates a character who desperately needs connection, but struggles to find it. His relationship with SpongeBob becomes more important because he has no family to turn to. His loneliness drives many of his actions and reactions. The isolation that defines Squidward contrasts sharply with another important relationship in SpongeBob's life. SpongeBob's pet snail, Gary. Gary is SpongeBob's pet snail. He lives in SpongeBob's pineapple house and serves as a companion. Gary appears in many episodes throughout the series, but here is something most people don't know. Gary behaves like a real snail in terms of movement and eating habits. He moves slowly across surfaces. He eats quietly and methodically. His care and behavior patterns remain consistent throughout the series. These realistic snail traits ground Gary in actual biology. Real snails are slow-moving mollusks. They glide across surfaces using a muscular foot. They leave trails of slime behind them. They eat plants and other organic matter. Gary demonstrates all of these real snail characteristics in the show. SpongeBob takes care of Gary responsibly. He feeds Gary regularly. He provides a home for Gary. He worries when Gary is sick or missing. The relationship between SpongeBob and Gary reflects real pet ownership. SpongeBob shows the responsibility and affection that comes with caring for an animal. Gary's presence in SpongeBob's life provides emotional depth to the main character. SpongeBob is not completely alone. He has a pet who depends on him and keeps him company. Gary gives SpongeBob someone to talk to at home and someone to care for. The show treats Gary with respect and consistency. He is not just a prop or background element. He is a real character with his own personality and presence. His snail biology remains accurate even in a world full of talking sponges and underwater fires. But Gary's realistic snail behavior contrasts with another aspect of his character that suggests hidden depth. 73. Gary's intelligence level. Gary is a pet snail. In the real world, snails are simple creatures with limited intelligence. They do not think or reason in complex ways. But here is something most people don't know. Gary often understands more than he shows, and he reacts logically to danger and problems. Throughout the series, Gary demonstrates awareness and intelligence that goes far beyond what a real snail would possess. He seems to comprehend what is happening around him. Gary responds appropriately to different situations. When danger appears, Gary hides or runs away. When SpongeBob is sad, Gary provides comfort. When something is wrong, Gary tries to alert SpongeBob. These behaviors suggest Gary thinks and understands in ways that snails should not be able to. Some episodes feature Gary as the central character. These stories reveal his inner thoughts and show that he has complex feelings and opinions. Gary judges the other characters. He makes decisions. He solves problems. He is far more intelligent than his simple meow communication suggests. The contrast between Gary's apparent simplicity and his actual intelligence creates interesting comedy. SpongeBob treats Gary like a normal pet, but Gary clearly understands everything happening around him. He chooses not to communicate in more complex ways, even though he could. This hidden intelligence makes Gary more interesting than a simple pet character. He becomes an observer who watches the chaos around SpongeBob and reacts with quiet wisdom. Gary often seems to be the smartest character in any scene, even though he only says meow. The gap between Gary's intelligence and his limited communication connects to a specific sound choice the creators made. 74. Meow sound design. Gary is a snail. Real snails do not make sounds that humans can hear. They are silent creatures that move quietly through their environment. But here is something most people don't know. Gary sounds like a cat, and this was done intentionally to make him relatable to viewers. Instead of creating unique snail sounds or leaving Gary completely silent, the show's creators decided Gary should meow. This sound choice is deliberate and serves specific purposes. Cats are familiar pets that most viewers understand. By making Gary sound like a cat, the show creates an immediate connection between Gary and real pet ownership. Viewers recognize the meow and understand Gary's role as SpongeBob's beloved pet. The meow sound also allows Gary to communicate emotion without speaking words. A happy meow sounds different from an angry meow. A questioning meow differs from a frightened meow. Tom Kenny, who voices Gary, performs different types of meows to convey Gary's emotional state. This choice reflects a broader pattern in SpongeBob of adapting real biology to serve storytelling. Gary is biologically a snail, but functionally a cat. He moves like a snail, but sounds like a cat. This combination makes him both unique and familiar. The meow sound has become so associated with Gary that fans instantly recognize it. When Gary appears in an episode, his characteristic meow announces his presence. The sound is as much a part of his identity as his shell or his eyes. This audio choice is one of many ways the show uses sound to create specific effects and atmosphere. 75. The use of silence in episodes. SpongeBob is generally a lively, energetic show. Music plays constantly. Characters talk frequently. Sound effects fill most scenes. The audio landscape is usually busy and active. But here is something most people don't know. Silence is used during calm moments throughout the series to slow pacing and create relaxation. The show is not constantly noisy. Strategic moments of quiet allow viewers to breathe and process what they have seen. These silent moments often occur between major action sequences or after particularly chaotic scenes. The silence provides contrast. After noise and energy, quiet feels powerful and meaningful. It gives weight to certain moments. Silence can also emphasize emotion. When a character feels sad or contemplative, removing music and background noise focuses attention on the character's internal state. The absence of sound creates space for feeling. The show uses silence sparingly because constant quiet would be boring. But when silence does appear, it stands out. Viewers notice the absence of sound because they have become accustomed to the show's usual audio fullness. Strategic silence makes SpongeBob more sophisticated than it might initially appear. The show understands that not every moment needs music or sound effects. Sometimes the most effective choice is to remove all audio except essential dialogue, or to go completely quiet. These moments of silence contribute to the show's surprisingly calming quality, despite its energetic reputation. The quiet moments balance the loud moments and create a more complete audio experience. Silence in SpongeBob often works together with another timing technique to create specific effects. 76. Long pauses as comedy and calm. Comedy often relies on quick timing. Jokes happen fast. Responses come immediately. Action stays constant. But SpongeBob sometimes takes a different approach. But here is something most people don't know. Long pauses give viewers time to process scenes and reduce noise in the show. Instead of rushing from one moment to the next, SpongeBob occasionally lets scenes breathe. Characters stop talking. The action pauses. Time stretches out. These pauses serve multiple purposes. In comedy, they can make jokes funnier by letting the punchline land before moving on. The pause gives viewers time to understand what happened and react. Rushing to the next joke too quickly can waste good comedy. Pauses also create calm in an otherwise energetic show. When everything stops for a moment, the pace relaxes. Viewers can catch their breath. The constant stimulation decreases. These calm moments prevent the show from becoming exhausting. Some pauses happen in the middle of conversations. A character says something, and then everyone just looks at each other for several seconds. These awkward pauses create a specific type of humor based on uncomfortable silence. Other pauses are purely atmospheric. The scene shows Bikini Bottom at peace. Nothing happens. The pause simply exists to create a peaceful moment. These pauses contribute to the show's ability to be both exciting and relaxing. The willingness to pause and be still distinguishes SpongeBob from shows that maintain constant energy. The variation in pacing makes the show more watchable over long periods. Viewers do not become overwhelmed because the show builds in natural breaks. These moments of pause and calm support another aspect of how the show communicates with its audience. 77. SpongeBob's moral lessons. Many children's shows include direct moral lessons. Characters explicitly state what they learned. The show tells viewers what message they should take away. SpongeBob uses a different approach. But here's something most people don't know. Lessons are shown rather than stated, and characters learn through actions instead of speeches. The show trusts viewers to understand what happened without explaining the moral explicitly. This subtle approach respects the audience's intelligence. When SpongeBob makes a mistake, he experiences natural consequences. Other characters react. Situations change. SpongeBob feels the impact of his choices. The lesson emerges from the story itself, rather than being announced at the end. This show-don't-tell approach makes lessons feel more genuine. Real life does not provide explicit moral narration. People learn by experiencing consequences and observing reactions. SpongeBob mirrors this natural learning process. The show does include some episodes with clearer moral messages. Holiday specials and certain themed episodes might be more direct about their lessons. but the majority of episodes let the story do the teaching, without spelling things out. This gentle messaging prevents the show from feeling preachy or heavy-handed. Children can enjoy the comedy and adventure while unconsciously absorbing ideas about friendship, responsibility, and kindness. The lessons sink in without feeling like lessons. By keeping moral teaching subtle, SpongeBob maintains its identity as entertainment first and education second. The show makes viewers laugh while quietly suggesting better ways to treat others and handle problems. The subtle approach to moral lessons connects to how the show handles conflict between characters. Septingdes metastotais. Conflict resolution patterns. Conflicts happen in almost every SpongeBob episode. Characters disagree, situations go wrong, problems need solving. But here is something most people don't know. Most conflicts resolve quickly, and characters return to normal by the end of each episode. SpongeBob does not feature long-running disputes or permanent damage to relationships. Arguments end, friendships repair. Everything resets to baseline. This pattern prevents lingering tension from building up across episodes. Each story is self-contained. When an episode ends, so does the conflict. Viewers do not need to remember grudges or unresolved issues from previous episodes. The quick resolution of conflicts keeps the show pleasant and optimistic. Characters might get angry or upset, but they forgive and move on. No one holds grudges. Relationships remain fundamentally stable despite temporary problems. This approach makes SpongeBob emotionally safe for viewers. You know that even when things go wrong, they will be okay by the end. The show provides comfort through predictability. Problems are temporary. Friendships are permanent. Some conflicts resolve through apologies and reconciliation. Other conflicts simply end without formal resolution. The characters move on, and the problem becomes irrelevant. Either way, the conflict does not carry into the next episode. This pattern of quick conflict resolution supports the show's overall tone. SpongeBob is ultimately about friendship, optimism, and finding joy. Long-lasting conflicts would undermine these themes. The show chooses emotional comfort over dramatic tension. The lack of lasting consequences from conflicts extends to another area where the show maintains flexibility. Bikini Bottom economy. Money exists in Bikini Bottom. Characters earn wages and buy things. The Krusty Krab charges for food. Stores sell products. Economic activity clearly happens. But here is something most people don't know. Money exists, but is rarely central to stories, and prices change without explanation. The show includes economic elements without treating economics as important. Money appears when convenient and disappears when not needed. Mr. Krabs is obsessed with money, which makes economics somewhat relevant to his character. But even Mr. Krabs' financial situation changes based on what each episode needs. Sometimes he is wealthy, sometimes he is broke. The show does not maintain consistent continuity about his finances. Prices for Krabby Patties and other items vary between episodes. A Krabby Patty might cost different amounts in different stories. The show does not worry about keeping prices consistent because the specific cost is not important to the comedy or storytelling. Most characters seem to have enough money to survive without financial stress being a major theme. SpongeBob earns wages, but never struggles to pay rent. Patrick has no job, but somehow maintains his rock home. The economic logic is loose and serves the stories rather than creating realistic financial situations. This flexible approach to economics prevents money problems from becoming a dark or depressing element. The show can include money when it serves a joke without making financial hardship a consistent theme. Characters exist in a world where basic needs are met, and money is just another element of the comedy. The loose economics in Bikini Bottom extend to the variety of employment opportunities that briefly appear. Otazinchi, jobs outside the Krusty Krab. The Krusty Krab is the most frequently shown workplace in SpongeBob. Most employment-related stories happen there. But Bikini Bottom has other businesses and jobs. But here is something most people don't know. Many side jobs appear briefly in episodes but are not explored deeply. The show features various professions and workplaces that exist for a single story and then disappear. These jobs suggest a larger city with diverse economic activity. Bikini Bottom has stores, schools, government offices, and service businesses. All of these operations require employees. Episodes occasionally show characters working in these other jobs. A character might work at a store for one episode.
Another might have a job at a factory.
These varied jobs create a sense that Bikini Bottom is a real, functioning city. Not everyone works at the Krusty Krab. The economy includes many different types of work. This variety makes the world feel larger and more complete. But the show does not develop these other jobs in detail. They exist as settings for specific stories and then disappear. The focus always returns to the familiar locations and the main character's usual situations. This approach allows the show to explore different types of work without committing to new recurring locations. A single episode can feature a construction site, a factory, or a retail store. Then that location never needs to appear again. The variety of jobs also provides opportunities for character-based comedy. Seeing how different characters handle different types of work creates new situations and challenges. But these explorations remain temporary, and the show always returns to its core settings and relationships. 81. Transportation in Bikini Bottom. Characters in Bikini Bottom need to get from place to place. They travel to work, visit friends, and go on adventures. The show features various forms of transportation. But here is something most people don't know. Boats function as cars in Bikini Bottom, and roads exist underwater to support this vehicle system. This transportation method appears throughout the series and remains consistent. Characters drive boats the same way people in the real world drive cars. The boats in SpongeBob do not float on water. They drive along the ocean floor on paved roads. This creates a parallel to real-world car culture. Characters have licenses, follow traffic rules, and deal with vehicle problems just like surface dwellers do with automobiles. SpongeBob attends boating school to learn how to drive. This directly mirrors drivers' education programs in the real world. The boating license serves the same purpose as a driver's license. The similarity makes the underwater world feel familiar and relatable. The choice to use boats as cars is another example of adapting surface world concepts to an underwater setting. Cars would not make sense at the bottom of the ocean, but boats fit the nautical theme while serving the same narrative purpose. Characters need personal transportation, and boats provide it. The boats come in different styles and sizes. Some characters drive small personal boats, others have larger vehicles. Mr. Krabs drives a boat that fits his personality. The variety of boat designs adds visual interest and reflects character differences. This transportation system allows the show to include driving-related stories and jokes. Traffic jams, accidents, road rage, and other car culture elements all appear in SpongeBob through the boat transportation system. The existence of boats as vehicles naturally requires infrastructure to support them. Otkosti, road rules. Underwater Bikini Bottom has roads where boats drive. These roads connect different parts of the city. Traffic moves along these underwater streets. But here is something most people don't know. Traffic laws are loosely followed in Bikini Bottom, and accidents are relatively rare despite chaotic driving. The show includes traffic rules when they serve the story, but ignores them when convenient. This flexible approach to road safety keeps the comedy flowing. Mrs. Puff's boating school teaches traffic laws and safe driving practices. This indicates that official rules exist. Characters are expected to follow certain guidelines when operating boats. The legal structure around driving is similar to real-world vehicle regulations. However, characters frequently violate traffic laws without serious consequences. They speed, drive recklessly, and ignore signs. These violations create comedy without resulting in constant crashes or injuries. The show maintains enough realism to be relatable, but not so much that it becomes dark or dangerous. SpongeBob's terrible driving causes chaos, but he rarely causes serious accidents. His incompetence creates comedy through near misses and minor mishaps, rather than actual destruction. The show keeps the consequences light and funny. The roads themselves function logically. Intersections exist, stop signs appear, traffic patterns make sense. The infrastructure supports a coherent transportation system, even though the rules are loosely enforced. This approach allows the show to use driving as a source of comedy, without making Bikini Bottom feel lawless or dangerous. Traffic exists when needed, and becomes flexible when that serves the story better. The roads and vehicles coexist with another impossible element that the show freely incorporates. 83. Weather patterns underwater. Bikini Bottom exists at the bottom of the ocean. The characters live surrounded by water, yet weather still affects them. But here is something most people don't know. Rain and storms appear underwater in the show, breaking scientific realism but maintaining familiar storytelling elements. Characters get wet from rain despite already being underwater. Clouds form beneath the ocean. Lightning strikes underwater locations. This impossibility is treated as completely normal within the show's logic. No one questions how rain can fall when they are already submerged in water. Storms happen, and characters react to them the same way surface dwellers would react to bad weather. The inclusion of weather serves several purposes. It allows the show to use weather as a plot device. Storms create danger and excitement. Rain sets a mood. Sunny days suggest happiness and opportunity. These are standard storytelling tools that work better if weather exists. Weather also makes Bikini Bottom feel more like a real place. Real cities experience changing weather conditions. By including weather, the show makes its underwater city feel more complete and believable, despite the scientific impossibility. The show sometimes acknowledges the strangeness of underwater weather through jokes. Characters might comment on the absurdity of rain underwater. These moments show self-awareness about breaking physics rules while continuing to do it anyway. Weather in SpongeBob follows the same pattern as fire and other impossible elements. The show knows it is being unrealistic, but chooses entertainment value over scientific accuracy. This willingness to embrace impossibility is part of SpongeBob's charm. Weather is not the only way the underwater world interacts with the surface world above. The surface world appearances. Bikini Bottom exists at the bottom of the ocean, completely separate from the human world above. Most episodes stay entirely underwater. But here is something most people don't know. Humans appear in a few episodes, and their scale differs greatly from the underwater characters. When the surface world appears, it creates interesting visual and narrative contrasts. These moments remind viewers that Bikini Bottom exists in the same world as humans. The show occasionally shows boats on the surface. Items fall from above and land in Bikini Bottom. These connections establish that the cartoon ocean exists beneath a real ocean where human activity happens. The two worlds are separate but connected. When humans do appear, they are usually shown from the perspective of the underwater characters. Humans look enormous compared to sea creatures. A human leg or hand might be all that is visible. The scale difference emphasizes how small the underwater characters are. Some episodes feature humans more prominently. The first SpongeBob movie shows interactions between underwater characters and humans on the surface. These moments require dealing with the size differences and environmental challenges. The surface world appearances add variety to the show. Most stories stay safely underwater, but occasional glimpses of the human world above expand the show's universe. These connections make Bikini Bottom feel like it exists in a larger world. The relationship between the underwater world and the surface world creates interesting questions about how things work when characters move between them. The rare appearances of humans highlight an inconsistency that fans have long debated. 85. Scale differences between worlds. SpongeBob and his friends are sea creatures. They are small compared to humans. The show usually keeps underwater characters and surface world elements separate. But here is something most people don't know. Characters change size when leaving water in some episodes, and this inconsistency is accepted rather than explained. When underwater characters visit the surface, or when comparisons are made between worlds, their size sometimes shifts to serve the story. In some episodes, SpongeBob and Patrick are shown as tiny compared to humans. They could fit in a human's hand. This scale makes biological sense. Real sea sponges and starfish are much smaller than people. In other episodes or the movies, the characters appear much larger. They can interact with humans at a more similar scale. SpongeBob might come up to a human's knee or waist, rather than being small enough to hold. This scale makes storytelling easier. The show does not explain these size differences. It simply presents characters at whatever scale works best for each story. Fans have debated which scale is correct, but the show treats both as valid depending on the needs of the episode. This flexibility reflects the show's overall approach to physics and logic. Consistency matters less than telling good stories. If a scene works better with characters being smaller or larger, the show adjusts their size without explanation. The willingness to change character scale shows how SpongeBob prioritizes entertainment over strict continuity. Rules can be flexible when flexibility serves the comedy and storytelling. These visual inconsistencies exist alongside subtle details hidden in the show's dialogue. 86. Real-world references hidden in dialogue. SpongeBob is a cartoon about talking sea creatures living underwater. The stories focus on this fantasy world, but here is something most people don't know. Some dialogue references real culture, and these references are subtle and brief. Characters occasionally say things that connect to movies, music, books, or other aspects of human culture. These references are not central to plots and do not require recognition to enjoy the show. The references are usually quick and understated. A character might use a phrase from a famous movie. Someone might make a joke that references a real historical event. These moments pass quickly and do not draw attention to themselves. Including subtle references rewards attentive viewers without excluding those who miss them. Adults who catch the references might appreciate the clever writing. Children who do not understand the references can still enjoy the story. The humor works on multiple levels. These cultural references also reflect the educational backgrounds and interests of the people making the show. Writers and animators bring their own knowledge and experiences to their work. References to things they enjoy naturally appear in the scripts. The show is careful not to rely too heavily on pop culture references. Some cartoons fill their dialogue with constant references to current events and trends. SpongeBob takes a more subtle approach. The references exist, but do not dominate the comedy. This restraint helps keep SpongeBob feeling timeless. Shows that rely heavily on topical references can feel dated quickly. SpongeBob's subtle approach allows it to remain fresh and relevant years after episodes first aired. The thoughtful approach to cultural references reflects the educational background of the people creating the show. 87. Educational background of writers. SpongeBob SquarePants has been created by many different people over its long run. Writers, animators, and producers all contribute to making episodes. But here is something most people don't know. Several writers and creators studied science or art before working on the show, and this influenced the storytelling approach. Steven Hillenberg's marine biology background is well known, but other team members also brought academic knowledge to their work. Having people with science backgrounds on the writing team helped maintain some level of scientific accuracy. When the show featured ocean biology, scientific concepts, or technical information, writers could draw on real knowledge. This prevented the show from being completely divorced from reality. The art backgrounds of various team members influenced the show's visual style and creative choices. People trained in visual arts brought sophisticated understanding of color, composition, and design. This expertise shows in the show's distinctive look. The combination of scientific and artistic education created a unique creative environment. The team valued both accuracy and creativity. They could base their fantasy world on real concepts while still making entertaining cartoons. This educational diversity also meant different writers brought different strengths. Some excelled at character-based comedy.
Others were better at visual gags.
Some understood timing and pacing. The variety of skills and knowledge made the show richer. The value placed on education and accuracy came directly from Stephen Hillenberg's vision for what the show should be. The educational foundation that many team members shared connected directly to the creative philosophy Hillenberg established. 88. Stephen Hillenberg's creative rules. Stephen Hillenberg created SpongeBob and shaped its early years. He made important decisions about what the show would be and how it would operate. But here is something most people don't know. Hillenberg set strict tone rules that avoided cruelty and cynicism. He had clear ideas about what SpongeBob should and should not include. These rules shaped the early seasons and established the show's identity. The guidelines helped maintain a consistent feel across different episodes and writers. Hillenberg wanted SpongeBob to be genuinely kind and optimistic. He did not want the show to become mean-spirited or dark. Characters could be frustrated or annoyed, but the overall tone should remain pleasant and hopeful. This requirement prevented the show from becoming cynical. The rules also covered how characters should treat each other. Conflict was acceptable, but true cruelty was not. Characters could argue and disagree, but they should not deliberately hurt each other in lasting ways. Friendship and community needed to remain central values. These creative rules distinguished SpongeBob from other cartoons. Some animated shows embrace meanness and edge. They feature characters who are genuinely cruel or situations that are deliberately dark. Hillenberg rejected this approach for SpongeBob. The tone rules created a safe, pleasant viewing experience. Parents could trust that SpongeBob would not include content that was too harsh or inappropriate. The show maintained boundaries that protected its identity as family-friendly entertainment. Hillenberg's influence on the show's tone and rules was significant during the early years, but his level of involvement changed over time. These creative rules remained influential even as the show's leadership and production evolved. 89. Post-Hillenberg era changes. Stephen Hillenberg was deeply involved with SpongeBob during its first few seasons. He served as executive producer and creative director. But here is something most people don't know. Later seasons shifted slightly in style after Hillenberg stepped back from day-to-day involvement. Hillenberg reduced his role after the first SpongeBob movie in 2004. He intended that film to be a series finale. When Nickelodeon continued the show, Hillenberg remained as executive producer, but was less involved in daily production. The animation became faster and smoother in later seasons. Production techniques improved with technology. The visual style evolved to look cleaner and more polished. These changes reflect both technological advancement and different creative teams making decisions. Some fans feel that the tone shifted slightly in post-Hillenberg seasons. The comedy became more energetic and less subtle in certain episodes. Character behaviors sometimes changed. The show maintained its core identity, but felt different in ways that longtime viewers noticed. These changes are documented and acknowledged by people who have worked on the show. Different eras of SpongeBob have different feels. The first 3 seasons are often called the Golden Age by fans who prefer Hillenberg's direct involvement. Hillenberg did return to more active involvement later. He worked on the second SpongeBob movie and remained connected to the show. But his reduced role during certain seasons created noticeable differences in style and approach. The evolution of the show across different creative periods is normal for long-running series. As leadership and creative teams change, so does the content they produce. Despite these changes, some elements from every era of the show have remained part of the official story. 90. Continuity errors that remain canon. SpongeBob has been produced over many years by different teams of writers and animators. With hundreds of episodes created by different people, mistakes happen. But here is something most people don't know. Some errors were never corrected, and fans debate their meaning while they officially remain part of the show. These mistakes exist in aired episodes and have never been fixed or addressed. They become part of the official SpongeBob record.
Continuity errors include contradictions about character backgrounds,
Inconsistent details about locations, and events that do not match between episodes. These errors occur because different writers work on different episodes without always coordinating every detail. Some errors are minor and barely noticeable. Others are significant enough that fans have discussed them extensively online. The inconsistencies about Patrick's parents are one example. The changing details about various aspects of Bikini Bottom's geography represent another. The show's creators have generally chosen not to address or fix these errors. Releasing corrected versions of episodes would be expensive and time-consuming. The errors do not prevent people from enjoying the show. Most viewers never notice the inconsistencies. By leaving errors uncorrected, they become part of the official canon. What was originally a mistake becomes an accepted part of SpongeBob's history. The show exists with its imperfections intact. This acceptance of errors reflects a practical approach to long-running television production. Perfection is impossible when creating hundreds of episodes over decades. The show prioritizes moving forward and creating new content over fixing old mistakes. Not all ideas for episodes made it to completion, and some planned content never reached viewers at all. Pirmas, episodes written but never produced. SpongeBob has produced over 300 episodes that have aired on television. The writing team has created countless stories over the years. But here is something most people don't know. Some story ideas were scrapped during development and never reached the animation stage. These unproduced episodes are confirmed to have existed through interviews with writers and producers. The ideas were written down, discussed, and ultimately rejected before any animation work began. Story ideas get rejected for many reasons. Sometimes an idea is too similar to an episode that already exists. Other times, the concept does not fit the show's tone or values. Budget constraints can prevent expensive episodes from being produced. Network executives might reject stories they consider inappropriate. Some rejected stories are discussed in behind-the-scenes interviews and DVD commentary. Writers occasionally mention episodes they wanted to make but could not. These stories exist as scripts or outlines, but were never turned into finished episodes. The exact details of most rejected episodes remain private. The creative team does not usually publish full scripts for unproduced stories. Only occasional hints and brief descriptions reveal what these episodes might have been about. Having rejected ideas is normal in television production. Not every concept makes it to screen. The filtering process helps ensure that only the strongest stories become actual episodes. What viewers see represents the ideas that survived the development process. These scrapped episodes represent roads not taken in SpongeBob's history. The show might have been different if certain rejected ideas had been produced, but the decisions to reject these stories helped shape the SpongeBob that audiences know. While some content never made it to screen, other unexpected elements did make it into finished episodes. Animation errors left intentionally. Creating animation requires drawing thousands of individual frames. With so much work happening across multiple teams, mistakes inevitably occur. But here's something most people don't know. Small mistakes were sometimes kept in finished episodes because fixing them was unnecessary and would waste production time. When animators or directors noticed minor errors, they had to decide whether correction was worth the effort and expense. Animation production involves strict deadlines and limited budgets. Correcting an error means redoing work that has already been completed. Artists must redraw frames. The corrected work must be processed again through the production pipeline. All of this costs time and money. If an error is small enough that most viewers will not notice it, fixing it might not be worth the cost. A character's clothing changing color for one frame is barely visible. A background element appearing slightly wrong does not ruin the story. These minor imperfections can stay without significantly affecting the viewing experience. The decision to leave errors in place is a practical business choice. Production teams allocate their limited resources to areas that matter most. Perfecting every tiny detail would slow down production and increase costs, without proportionally improving the final product. Some animation errors are more noticeable, but still remain in aired episodes. These might have been discovered too late in the production process to fix without delaying the episode's air date. Meeting broadcast schedules sometimes takes priority over achieving perfection. The presence of small errors in finished episodes shows that animation is created by human beings working under real-world constraints. The show exists with its imperfections because practical limitations required accepting some mistakes. These intentional imperfections in the visuals connect to another area where SpongeBob draws from existing resources: sound effects from old cartoons. Sound effects bring SpongeBob's world to life. Every action has an accompanying sound. Characters make noises when they move, fall, or interact with objects. But here's something most people don't know. Classic cartoon sounds are reused throughout SpongeBob, and these come from shared sound effect libraries. Many of the sound effects in SpongeBob are not original creations. They are existing recordings that have been used in numerous cartoons and shows over many decades. Sound effect libraries contain thousands of recorded sounds that production teams can license and use. These libraries include sounds for footsteps, crashes, boings, whistles, and countless other noises. Animation studios use these libraries because creating every sound from scratch would be extremely expensive and time-consuming. Some sound effects in SpongeBob are recognizable from classic Warner Brothers cartoons, Disney animations, and other vintage shows. The same crash sound or slide whistle might appear in cartoons from completely different studios and eras. These shared sounds create a sense of familiarity and connection to animation history. Using library sounds is common practice throughout the animation industry. It is not unique to SpongeBob. Nearly all animated shows rely on sound effect libraries for at least some of their audio. The practice has existed since the early days of animation, when studios began creating collections of reusable sounds. SpongeBob also creates some original sound effects when needed. Unique character sounds or special noises specific to certain episodes are recorded fresh. But the majority of everyday sound effects come from existing libraries. The reuse of classic sound effects connects SpongeBob to the broader tradition of animation. The show sounds familiar, partly because it shares audio DNA with cartoons from previous generations. This connection to animation history extends beyond just sound effects to fundamental animation techniques. 94. Influence of classic animation. SpongeBob is a modern cartoon that began in 1999. It uses contemporary animation technology and production methods. But here is something most people don't know. The show draws heavily from early cartoons in terms of physical comedy and timing. This influence is confirmed by Steven Hillenberg and other creators who have discussed their inspirations. Classic animation from the 1930s through 1960s shaped how SpongeBob moves and behaves. Old cartoons featured characters who could stretch, squash, flatten, and distort their bodies in impossible ways. This style of physical comedy is called squash and stretch in animation. SpongeBob uses these same techniques. Characters compress when they hit the ground. They stretch when they run fast. Their bodies distort for comedic effect. The timing of jokes in SpongeBob also reflects classic animation influence. Old cartoons had specific rhythms and pacing that modern audiences recognize as distinctively cartoony. SpongeBob preserves this timing style. Pauses land in specific places. Actions happen at particular speeds. The rhythm feels familiar because it comes from animation traditions. Hillenberg studied classic animation while developing SpongeBob. He watched vintage cartoons and analyzed what made them work. He deliberately incorporated techniques from animation masters into his own creation. This connection was intentional, not accidental. The influence of classic animation helps SpongeBob feel timeless. The show looks modern, but moves and behaves like classic cartoons. This combination appeals to multiple generations. Adults who grew up with old cartoons recognize familiar elements. Children discover animation styles that have entertained audiences for nearly a century. By honoring animation history while creating something new, SpongeBob bridges past and present. The show is both contemporary and traditional at the same time. This timeless quality has contributed significantly to how the show has performed around the world. 95. SpongeBob's global popularity. SpongeBob SquarePants premiered in the United States in 1999. The show was created in English for American audiences. But here is something most people don't know. The show avoids culture-specific jokes, which helps it appeal to international audiences. SpongeBob has become a global phenomenon, airing in more than 180 countries. The show's universal approach to comedy allowed it to succeed worldwide. Many American television shows include references to American culture, politics, sports, or current events. These references can confuse international viewers who are not familiar with American life. SpongeBob deliberately minimizes these culture-specific elements. The humor in SpongeBob comes from character personalities, physical comedy, and universal situations. Friendship conflicts, work frustrations, and silly mishaps are understandable regardless of where you live. A child in Japan can understand SpongeBob's optimism just as easily as a child in Brazil or France. The underwater setting also helps with international appeal. Bikini Bottom is not clearly connected to any real country or culture. It exists as its own world with its own rules. This separation from real geography makes the show feel equally foreign and familiar to everyone. SpongeBob's global success has made it one of the most widely recognized animated properties in the world. The character appears on merchandise in countries across every continent. The show has become a truly international cultural phenomenon. This international reach required more than just universal humor. The show needed to be carefully adapted for different languages and cultures. The show's ability to translate across cultures connects directly to how it has been adapted for international audiences. 96. Language adaptations. SpongeBob airs in over 180 countries around the world. Each country has its own language or multiple languages. The show must be translated for these different audiences. But here is something most people don't know. Jokes are adapted for other languages rather than being translated word for word. Direct translation often does not work for comedy. Puns, wordplay, and cultural references need to be changed to make sense in different languages and cultures. When SpongeBob is dubbed into another language, translators work to preserve the joke's intent rather than the exact words. If a joke relies on English wordplay, translators create equivalent wordplay in the target language. The specific words change, but the humor remains. This adaptation process requires creativity and cultural knowledge. Translators must understand both the original joke and their target culture. They need to find ways to make the humor work for local audiences while maintaining the spirit of the original content. Some episodes are easier to adapt than others. Physical comedy and visual gags require no translation. They work the same way in every language. But dialogue-heavy jokes or cultural references need careful adaptation to remain funny. Voice actors in other countries bring their own interpretations to the characters. SpongeBob sounds different in Spanish, Japanese, German, or any other language. But the voice actors try to capture the same character essence that Tom Kenny created in English. The global dubbing effort shows how much work goes into making SpongeBob accessible worldwide. Each language version represents a significant production effort to ensure the show works for that specific audience. Despite these careful adaptations, not all SpongeBob content has been shown in all markets. 97. Episodes banned or edited. SpongeBob has produced hundreds of episodes over more than 25 years. The vast majority of these episodes air without problems in most countries. But here is something most people don't know. Some episodes were edited or pulled from circulation for various reasons. These changes are documented and confirmed by Nickelodeon and other official sources. The reasons for editing or removing episodes vary, but typically involve sensitivity concerns. Certain episodes were pulled because they dealt with topics that networks or parent groups considered inappropriate for children. Content that seemed acceptable when originally produced
sometimes becomes controversial later. Standards change over time, and episodes that aired years ago might not meet current guidelines. Some episodes were edited rather than completely removed. Specific scenes or jokes might be cut while the rest of the episode remains. This allows the episode to continue airing in a modified form that addresses the concerns. Different countries have different standards for children's content. An episode that airs without issue in the United States might be edited or banned in other countries. Cultural differences affect what is considered acceptable programming. The specific details of which episodes were banned or edited vary by region and time period. Nickelodeon has made some of these decisions publicly while keeping others private. Documentation exists for the most widely discussed cases. These editing and removal decisions reflect ongoing conversations about appropriate content for children. What seems harmless to some viewers might concern others. Networks must balance creative freedom with responsibility to young audiences. The varying interpretations of what is appropriate connect to how different viewers experience the show. 98. Viewer age interpretation. SpongeBob is classified as a children's show. It airs on a children's network and is primarily marketed to young viewers. But here is something most people don't know. Different ages interpret episodes in different ways, with children focusing primarily on visuals, while adults notice underlying themes. The show works on multiple levels simultaneously. This multi-layered approach helps explain why SpongeBob has fans across all age groups. Young children watch SpongeBob for the bright colors, silly voices, and physical comedy. They laugh when characters fall down or make funny faces. The visual humor and energetic action hold their attention. They enjoy the show without necessarily understanding deeper meanings. Older children and teenagers might notice the character dynamics and ongoing jokes. They recognize recurring gags and appreciate the relationships between characters. Their understanding of the show is more sophisticated than younger viewers. Adults often notice themes about work, friendship, ambition, and disappointment that children miss entirely. Squidward's frustrated artistic ambitions resonate differently with adults who have experienced career disappointments. Mr. Krab's obsession with money reflects real business culture in ways that adults recognize. This multi-generational appeal is part of what makes SpongeBob successful. Parents can watch with their children and find their own reasons to enjoy the show. The content works for everyone without talking down to children or excluding adults. The ability to appeal to multiple age groups simultaneously requires careful writing and thoughtful creative choices. SpongeBob maintains its identity as children's entertainment while including layers that reward more mature viewers. This broad appeal connects to deliberate choices the creators made about how to design the show's world. 99. Why the show feels timeless. SpongeBob premiered in 1999, over 25 years ago. Many shows from that era feel dated when rewatched today. But here is something most people don't know. Technology is rarely shown in SpongeBob, and fashion stays simple, which helps avoid dating the series. The show made deliberate choices to minimize elements that would tie it to a specific time period. These choices help SpongeBob feel fresh, regardless of when you watch it. Characters in SpongeBob do not use smartphones, computers, or other technology that changes rapidly. The show avoids references to current gadgets that would quickly become outdated. When technology does appear, it is generic or deliberately old-fashioned in ways that feel timeless. The characters wear simple, consistent clothing. SpongeBob always wears the same square pants and tie. Patrick wears shorts. Squidward wears a shirt. These outfits never change with fashion trends. They exist outside of any specific style era. The show also avoids references to current events, celebrities, or pop culture moments that would date it. Some cartoons fill their dialogue with references to whatever is popular at the time. These references make the show feel tied to that specific moment in history. SpongeBob largely avoids this approach. Music in SpongeBob comes primarily from vintage recordings or timeless styles. The Hawaiian music and vintage library tracks do not sound contemporary or dated. They exist in their own timeless sonic space. By avoiding temporal markers, SpongeBob can be enjoyed by new generations without feeling like a product of a different era. Episodes from 1999 work just as well today because they do not reference things that have changed. This timeless quality supports one final aspect of what makes SpongeBob so comforting and enduring. 100. The calm world of Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob SquarePants has aired for over 25 years. Hundreds of episodes have shown adventures, conflicts, and changes in Bikini Bottom. But here is something most people don't know. Bikini Bottom rarely changes permanently, and characters always return to their familiar routines. No matter what happens in an episode, everything resets by the next one. This consistency creates comfort and reliability for viewers. Major changes do not stick. If someone's house gets destroyed, it is rebuilt by the next episode. If a character learns an important lesson, they often forget it later. If relationships change, they return to their original state. The world maintains stability. This reset approach means viewers can watch any episode without needing to know what happened before. Each story stands alone. You do not need to follow a complex ongoing narrative. Every episode returns to the same baseline situation. The consistency creates a sense of comfort. Viewers know that no matter how chaotic things get during an episode, everything will be okay by the end. SpongeBob will still work at the Krusty Krab. Patrick will still live under his rock. Squidward will still be grumpy. The familiar world remains unchanged. This stability is part of what makes SpongeBob so relaxing and pleasant to watch. The show provides an escape to a world where nothing truly bad ever happens. Problems are temporary. Friendships are permanent. The ocean remains calm beneath all the surface chaos. Bikini Bottom exists as a peaceful place where you always know what to expect. The consistency across hundreds of episodes has made it a comforting presence for millions of viewers around the world. That reliability is part of SpongeBob's lasting appeal, and why people continue to return to this underwater world year after year. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.